I want to welcome everybody to our regular meeting of the San Benito County Board of Supervisors for this August 19, 2004. If you'll stand with me, we'll be led with the Pledge of Allegiance by Supervisor Bertello.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would entertain a motion to acknowledge the certificate of posting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? We passes 5-0. We have a presentation. Let's see. Can I have a motion? Do we need a motion?
Yeah, I will make a motion that we accept this certificate of recognition to Kim Dryden.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It passes 5-0. Supervisor Patel, Farias?
Thank you. I'd like to have Kim come up and Lisa from First Five. Thank you for being here this morning. It's a pleasure to present this certificate. Come on over here so that you can come out on the camera. This is presented Certificate of Appreciation to Kim Dryden for her memorable contribution and invaluable service to the First Five Commission since 2001. With profound gratitude and appreciation on behalf of the San Benito County Board of Supervisors. Kim has been instrumental to bring a lot of things to San Benito County. She is one of those that does a lot of behind-the-scenes work. And back in, I think it was 2003, she started what we called Community Assistance Network. It is no longer, we called it CAN, but we did develop a lot of partnerships as a result of her contribution and making sure that we brought a lot of agencies together. We knew about each other, what we were all doing, sharing information, resources, and I really am very grateful for that as well. We both sit on the Behavioral Health Board, on the Foster Youth Services Council. I mean, it's endless what this lady does. Thank you so much, but this today is your recognition for First Five, and I would like Lisa to say a few words about you. Here you go.
I just want to, on behalf of the First Five Commission, I just want to thank Kim for her contribution. She was in the meetings before First Five became a formal entity. So her contribution, her wisdom, I started on as a new director, really appreciated your support, Kim. And she was a true leader on our commission. And we'll miss you, but we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate this recognition, but really the recognition goes to the actual First Five group. It's been a pleasure working with all of the other commissioners, with the executive directors, and I'm very proud of the work that they've done these past 14 years and look forward to many more years touching the lives of the youngest members in our community. Thank you.
With that, we'll go on to public comment. This is the opportunity to address the board on any item of interest not appearing on the agenda. No action may be taken unless provided by Government Code Section 54954.2, and it is a 3-minute time limit. And do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, first speaker is David Hugo.
Boy. David Huboy. Hi, good morning. David Huboy, Hollister. It's good to be back here. It's been a little while. You know, as we find ourselves in a struggle to get through the worst drought in California's recorded history, instead of hoping and waiting for an El Nino to bail us out, maybe it's about time we decide that we've gone through enough here, and it's time to take some action. And decisions can be made when we decide to act that can be made individually and collectively to help us conserve our local water supply. When we work together, good things can happen. With assistance by the Water Resources Association of San Benito County and through water agencies they represent, locally we have reduced water from 212 gallons per capita per day in the late 1990s to 161 gallons per capita per day in 2010, and are on track to achieve 129 gallons per capita per day by the year 2020. The Green Business Committee of the San Benito Chamber of Commerce, with help from Farmhouse Communications, the San Benito Business Council, the Water Resources Association of San Benito County, and the Natural Resource Conservation District, are holding a drought workshop on Thursday, the 28th of August, to bring attention to the local programs and services available to agriculture, business, and residents. May we all learn how to use water efficiently so we can conserve our local water supply. The admission is free and comes with a free breakfast at Payne's Restaurant. Seating is limited, and you can reserve your seat by calling 831-637-4378. The event will be filmed by CMAP TV. Hope to get the word out. Yes, even when we get past the drought, we need to continue to use water as efficiently as possible. Between climate change, a growing population, and environmental problems in the Delta, this finite resource must be used sparingly. Even during a wet year, it takes a lot of energy to move and store water. Plus, the treatment of water is costly, and by decreasing our water use, we can decrease the necessity of infrastructure improvements, as well as taking pride in doing what we can to be responsible stewards. And I'll leave you for a Ben Franklin quote in Poor Richard's Almanac: "When the well dry, we know the worth of water." Thanks a lot. Thanks for this, and hope to see you at the workshop on the 28th.
Next speaker is Marty Richmond.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Marty Richmond from Hollister. Last week, during a special meeting of the City Council, I had occasion to comment on the good relationship between the police department in Hollister and the citizens in Hollister, and how that good relationship has resulted in reduction in crime, better community, and all the things involved. I want to take this opportunity to make sure I did not leave out the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department in the county has done a very good job operating under extreme budget restrictions. Many people may not realize that they run the jail, and they run security at the courthouse, or we're running at the old courthouse, and they have responsibilities in an enormously large county with a small amount of people in their patrol section. So I did not want to leave out the sheriffs. I think the most important, I've said several times prior to this madness that's going on in Missouri, that the most important portion of policing is the relationship between the police departments and the community, how they treat each other. And Sheriff Thompson deserves our thanks, and all of his members of his organization for basically being steady Eddie at the wheel and just going along with very few complaints, keeping his eye on the ball. His hair doesn't catch on fire, and he's always not in here claiming some kind of emergency. And he does his employees, and the sheriffs, and also the portion of his administrative employees that are not badged people, don't do things that make the headlines, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be steady and reliable, and they do a good job, and I wanted to thank them on behalf of myself and my family. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mark Wyrick.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Mark Wyrick. I'm the new union organizer from SEIU 521. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself and reaffirm that, we're committed to working together to ensure that the county provides quality public services, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Next speaker is Marvin Jones.
Mr. Chairman, board members, morning. I was back in Kentucky last week since the last meeting. Mama's birthday, 104. In any case, bright sunny day, just crystal clear. And the sun wasn't half as hot on your skin as it is out here. And I wondered why. Well, the humidity made up for the difference. Greenhouse gas, that water vapor. So I just did some number crunching. Carbon dioxide, 400 parts per million, maybe a little less this time of growing season, but 400 parts per million. We're doing all sorts of things to reduce the carbon dioxide output. Methane is supposedly on the order of 20 times more efficient at greenhouse gas heating than carbon dioxide. So to achieve the goals in your general plan that you've got to get rid of 80% of the cattle in San Benito County because of their flatulence, methane, less than 2 parts per million in the atmosphere, but we're going to get rid of 80% of the cattle in San Benito County. Water's only got the 2 hydrogens in it compared to methane, so I'm guessing it's about 10 times more efficient than carbon dioxide. Finally getting to the humidity aspect there. Humidity, 85 degrees, 10% humidity. We experience that out here. First time I heard of single-digit humidity, that had to be wrong, and I heard later that it wasn't. But 85 degrees, 10% humidity, 4,000 parts per million water vapor. 10 times more efficient than carbon dioxide as greenhouse gas. And back east, if it was 85 degrees and only 50% humidity, it felt like 90. But at 50% humidity, we're speaking of 20,000 parts per million water vapor. And we're worried about carbon dioxide with all the impact we're doing to our economy with AB 32, SB 375. Somebody's not connecting the dots. I think it's just a method for government control. I'm one of those conspiracy theorists, I guess. But that's all for today. See you next time.
Speaker Andy, and I'm not sure how to pronounce the last.
I'll do it. I'm not sure how to pronounce it either.
I know what it has to-
That's okay. Good morning, Chairman, member of the board. My name is Andy Shaw Coron. I live at 501 Ricardo Drive in Aromas, California. I'm also part of the Coalition to Protect San Benito, the folks coalition that's pushing for the initiative to ban fracking, cyclic steam injection, acidizing in the county. I understand there's some discussion about bringing DOGGR, the state agency that regulates oil and gas, to the county. And our group is opposed to bringing them down at this point. DOGGR is not viewed in ours. In our point of view, we don't see them as a neutral party in this process. The oil and gas industry's argument is that DOGGR is essentially been advocating for, well, the industry's position is that the regulations that DOGGR has promulgated are adequate to protect us. Many, many people in the state feel otherwise. And to bring them to the county is to basically side with the industry and say that our current regulations are adequate. So if you do decide to bring them down, I would urge you to give equal time to those who don't feel the regulations are adequate, because there are many, many people across this country, in this state, even whole countries have banned fracking at this point because they feel that there's no such thing as safe fracking. And the recent shutdowns of deep water injection wells in the valley have, which were approved by Dogger, and then they had to pull back after they found possibilities of contamination, tells you that there's real concerns. So again, if you do bring them, I don't think they're necessary between now and the election, but if you do bring them, I think you should give equal time to those who think that the regulations are not adequate. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mary.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. My name is Mary Shaw Coron, and I'm also in the Coalition to Protect San Benito, which has helped put the ballot initiative, which is now Measure J, on the ballot. This is to ban cyclic steam acidizing and fracking. It does allow conventional drilling. I just want to remind you to continue about 90+% of our county. So most of the current wells will not be affected other than the cyclic steam near the pinnacles. I'm here today because I think that since Measure J is on the ballot for this November, that you need to be sensitive to any presentation by Dogger on SB4. So there is, currently a debate on the topic of these well stimulation techniques, which SB4 addresses. And so when you do bring, or if you do bring Dogger representatives to speak about this, I think it would be more fair and balanced, given that this is a campaign period about this particular topic, to give or to allow a more fair and balanced presentation. So if Dogger were to be here speaking about the regulations, it would be very helpful, I think, for our community to hear another perspective. Thank you very much.
I have no other speakers. Natasha, yes.
Hi. Hello. Supervisor Barrios is my supervisor. And I'm here to speak to the issue because in the last year I attended two of the Dogger hearings. One was here in Morgan Hill and the other in Salinas. And it was very interesting because I have studied the SB4 bill. And they've had more recent hearings now because they're trying to amend and apparently improve the SB4 because there was so much criticism of it as being ineffective. And at the two hearings I was in, the great majority of people, after they listened to the state explain what it was all about, the great majority of the people there, both in Salinas and in Morgan Hill here, were questioning the efficacy of this bill and if it would really do anything to keep our water and land and air from being degraded. So it is quite a political issue. And I think that if the Board of Supervisors wants to get involved in this very political statewide issue, that we should give equal time to the citizens of this county to present objections or other points of view, because it is a very political issue, and I don't know what the feeling of the Board of Supervisors about getting involved in something like this is, but I think it is important to recognize the sentiments of the people in this area as they've been expressed at these Dogger hearings. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that'd like to address the board at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to department head. Mr. Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have one announcement from our department heads. It's out of our library. We have Nora Conte here to give an announcement.
Good morning, board members, members of the public, and those community folks that are watching us at home. This summer, we had a very busy summer, a very busy year starting in January. I just want to have some few announcements to make. I want to thank Supervisor Dela Cruz, staff from the city of Hollister, I'm sorry, from the county, excuse me, Barbara Thompson, our treasurer, Mary Lou, Andrade for helping us in summer reading program. At our last program, we had over 150 individuals attend that program, and our Supervisor Dela Cruz and our mayor did a wonderful job at reading to the children and just kept them right in the palm of their hand, listening to every word that they read out of their book. So thank you so much, Supervisor Dela Cruz, and those employees that gave their time to come and help us with the Summer Reading Club. Also, the partners that participated in Summer Reading Club this year was the Farm Bureau, the Historical Society, Mountain Mikes, and of course the Friends of the Library. We can't forget Kathy Stewart, who also helped us to give books away. She's from the Office of Education, so she was there as well. So I would like for you to mark, we had an exciting summer reading club, and the kids read and they avoided the summer slump. So thank you so much for helping our children to avoid the summer slide, rather, because if you don't keep up your reading skills during the summer, then you are not ready to go back to school. You have to catch up. And some statistic I have seen is that if you continue to do this during your entire years of attending school, then you can be even 2 years behind. So thank you, all of the partners and all the employees and board members, the mayor that helped us to prevent this for many of our children. You have in front of you the tech tutorial training. This is a derivative of the actual training that the staff received through the technology grant. We are now able to provide these tech tutorial services. We will be launching a new web page within a couple of weeks, maybe sooner, so that this leads us right into the celebration of literacy. The month of September, throughout California, there's going to be a major celebration of literacy. We will have a program as well, so you will be receiving invitations in the next couple of days. So please mark September the 18th as the day of celebration. We will have activities throughout the day, including our tech tutorials. We will be unveiling our technology lab. We did a fundraiser, and we're able to find enough money to replace all of our terminals in our adult technology lab, so that'll be unveiled, as well as we will be unveiling the technology collection. All of the technology collection came from our technology grant, and in addition, we received equipment that'll better help us to train individuals on how to use technology. The iPads are up for use of the public. The staff knows how to use them. They're able to provide training on these iPads, and the public is now able to go in, use these iPads, and be able to actually do the research on our databases and even email them to their home. I would like to also just touch a little bit on the Coast to Coast RX cards. I would like to thank Mindy Rose for being so gracious and working with us to get these RX cards out to the public. Over 11,300 are going to be going out. Some of them have already gone out later in August. The remainder will be going out to the public, encouraging individuals to use their Coast to Coast card, not only for a savings for themselves, but also a contribution to support the library. Okay, I think that's it. I haven't seen you for a little bit. We've been really extremely busy trying to finish our grant, provide the best service that we can within the confines of what we do have. And once again, board, thank you very much, as we have implemented a 7-point marketing plan for the discount cards, and I'll be letting you know how it continues to develop. The employees are going to be receiving this in their paychecks. City of Hollister City Manager Avera is also sending it out on the paycheck, so I want to thank him, for doing that and promoting it. So it's been a busy summer, and it'll continue to be busy as a lot of our children have returned back to school. If you have a chance, within the next week or so, we are going to be launching our new webpage, which is a WordPress. Through our grant, we're able to empower ourselves to be able to update our web page. And in there, you will see where the Common Core standards, the test is in there so that our children will be able to practice on that test before they take it for school, so they'll have a better chance of doing much better. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry that I took a little bit longer, but I had so much to share with you. And thank you for your support and your leadership and your wisdom, as usual.
Thank you, Nora. Ms. Espinoza?
We have no further announcements.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to board announcements. Supervisor Rivas? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the staff of Hollister Hills. I also like to thank Supervisor Munzers and Mayor Ignacio Velasquez. We actually took a tour of the Hollister Hills, and that's actually one of the most beautiful assets that we have in San Benito County. And I was shocked to see what we have, and and maybe in my part, I lived all my life in San Benito County, and I've gone to Hollister Hills maybe once or twice, and I'm planning on going and actually having a little family reunion out there just because of the tour yesterday. It's a real beautiful environment, and I can't wait to see other benefits coming in. So thank Supervisor Munzers, please express a thanks to the entire staff. We did appreciate it. Another note, Mr. Chair, to the public, please drive safely. As you are aware, our surrounding local schools will start pretty soon, and our kids will be walking on those roads. So let's kind of drive a little slow, be on the lookout for toddlers, and just drive slow. Sometimes those kids are desperate and excited to go back to school with all the brand new pencils and backpacks and papers, and that's very important. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Botello, your hair's not green. I thought maybe you drank so much green beer, your hair would turn green.
It was more Irish whiskey.
Oh.
I want to thank the board for, in my absence of their very hard work at the last board meeting. I had a scheduling mishap and scheduled my vacation during a board meeting. I couldn't blame it on my wife. I did it myself. It was a mistake. I apologize to the people of San Benito County for missing a board meeting, but I'm back. I'm refreshed, and I understand the last board meeting was ran very efficiently by the chairman, rather than in my absence that it was a little bit less time consuming. So I understand Supervisor De La Cruz gave me the credit for the efficiency of time at the last board meeting, but that's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Barris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank David Huboy and the folks from the water conservation, for their water conservation efforts. I think it's really important that the community learn more about what they can do to conserve, and I know at our level, we are doing everything to take orders from the governor in that we need to conserve and try to follow their lead. I also want to thank all those that were involved with Kids at the Park. Our chief probation officer was there. It was nice to introduce you. And this event has been going on for about 21 years, and it's attended by hundreds and hundreds of children and their families. They learn about health, they learn about safety, and agencies from all over the county, the city are there. And I really want to thank the staff. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time to put this together and make it successful. And then once again, it was. And also, I want to remind anyone that's interested in golfing, we have the YMCA fundraiser golf tournament on Friday. And this money that is raised at the golf tournament stays in San Benito County for programs for children and their families. So if you're interested, and if you don't golf, there is a dinner, and this is being held at San Juan Oaks Golf Club. There's a dinner after the golf tournament at 6 o'clock, so I have tickets. So if you're interested, they're $40, and we would love to have you attend. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I would just like to echo Supervisor De La Cruz comments about Hollister Hills. This is about the third or fourth tour that I've been able to participate in at Hollister Hills, and every time I go out there, I learn something new about the park or what the park does for the community. It's a great asset to our community, and they are and want to be part of the community, and they are always giving back to the community, and I appreciate the staff and the hard work that they do. I also want to mention that I participated in Jazz Under the Stars Saturday night, and our own Supervisor Rivas was participating in pouring wine at the event, and it was a very successful event. Former Supervisor Pat Lowe was chair of that group, and it was a very great event, and I just want to thank them for their event. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I've been asked to pull item 18. Is there anybody from the public that would like an item pulled from the consent agenda?
Item 12 and 19.
Okay. With that, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
As amended, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll move on to item number 12. Mr. Espinoza?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question is.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question on this is, how did we get a free car now that costs us $6,706? We received $25,000 from the Air Board. We received $2,500 in rebates, so that gives us $27,500, and we still owe over $4,000. If you look at the manufactured suggested retail price, it's $21,510. So I'm just trying to find out how we jumped from a free car, which I looked up your item on the 20th, and your resolution states that you get the $25,000, it's a free car. The agenda item states that it was a free car, and according to your minutes, it was a free car. And we ended up owing $6,000, so.
We have Melinda here, and Melinda and I both can talk to that. So, Melinda, would you like to go ahead and take a stab at it first, and I'll chime in?
Okay. The transaction for the vehicle went through a car dealership in Monterey, and the contract that I have is that the manufacturer's, the MSR price on it was approximately $29,000. I think at the time that the contract was done, the estimation was around $25,000. However, when the car actually came in and they added, by the time that the accessories for the charging accessories on the vehicle and the sales tax on top of the price of the MSRP of the vehicle, it came to around $31,000. And the Air Pollution Board did make their payment of $25,000 to the dealership. And so San Benito County, the final cost to them was around $6,000. However, there is another $2,500 rebate that will be coming in once the payment is made.
Are there any questions of the board? Supervisor Bertello?
Yeah, thanks. That is a little disturbing. I think former Supervisor Lowe brought up a pretty good point as far as, we had the impression this was not a cost to county any money.
Right.
Did we try to just say, you know what, Mr. Dealer, we're not going to take it for a penny more than $25,000 and walk out the door like you would and I would do in a privately purchasing a car and drive a little bit harder bargain?
I'm not sure
I know
how
you-
all the
you're not
transaction was handled,
doing the
but
negotiating,
I did
but-
believe in the conversations that I had. Yes, I did go back to the project manager on this and ask a couple of questions, and Ray did also, trying to stick to that $25,000.
Yeah, I think that's what we ought to do. Personally, I'm sorry, I'll allow the CAO to interject now.
Yeah, and you know what happened was, unfortunately, our Adam Goldstone is no longer working here, and he was the one that was spearheading the negotiations with this particular item. The Air Board was kind enough to allow us to get a free vehicle with some of the accessories. We had a charging station, so we went through the process. We went to the board. We thought we were getting a free vehicle. We did the install of the power unit and all these other things that come associated with it here at this site. And so when we were ready to pick that up, that's when they basically said it's not entirely free. And we would have been out more money without a vehicle. If that was really what it boiled down to. And we did try to negotiate. We did go back to them. We went back to the Air Board, and at this point, it was, unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. We had a charging station here that would have been, we'd have paid a lot of money for it and not have a car. So
It wouldn't bother me as much if we went through a dealership in San Bernardino County. It would, at least we could justify that the sales taxes, kind of stay here at home rather than in Monterey County. But we probably have to go forward with this. But I think we need to, have a little bit more information when we approve this in previous meetings, and have all the information in front of us prior to, at this point in time, having this adjustment to our budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, two questions. First question, I believe the sales tax stays were resigned, right? So it should be in San Bernardino County?
last time I bought a car, which was a while back, the tax was based off of the county tax.
And then and the county gets the sales tax.
I'll have to verify that for you.
But
to be 100%.
I mean, my bigger question is, and I support Supervisor Batella, wish I can do the same thing, you have a check and then next thing you know, they're asking you for another $5,000. I would have said straight out, here's the keys, come get the car. But yet again, maybe because we're government, we just have to pay the bill then. What options do we have?
Mr. Chair, I think what I want to ask is there is benefit to San Benito County in spite of the fact that we do have to pay the additional amount. I'm assuming that we are going to save a lot of money by getting this vehicle. And it was budgeted, and I don't know, since we were not expecting to pay for it, how were we able to budget that?
That was something that both Melinda and I talked about. It'd be coming out of the general fund, out of our office to pay for it. We still have not paid for the vehicle, and we have the option if the board wishes to, send it back. We could do that if we have to do that.
Well, my feeling is this, that if you've done every effort already to negotiate and that it is what it is, if there is benefit in getting this vehicle, getting a vehicle for $4,000 is unheard of in this day and age, so I'll take it. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
My comments are that when I first heard about this, because I do serve on the Air District Board, I checked with Adam, because I wasn't sure about this, and I checked with staff at the Air Board. And at that time, everybody thought that the Air District had enough money. They actually gave out 4 vehicles to 4 different agencies. And I'm not sure where the other 3 are anymore. But they thought we were picked because we had applied for an electric vehicle in last year AB 2766 grant program, and there wasn't enough money to fund that unit. Some money came back to the grant fund because of either project came in under budget or people that had received grants didn't follow up on the grant. So they had about $100,000. At the time, they thought they could purchase 4 vehicles for $25,000 and give them to the 4 agencies. When it came down to it, it ended up being basically $4,000 more per vehicle for each of the agencies. But unfortunately, everybody was down the road and in the process of getting their vehicles when that came to light. So kind of how my take on how some of this came about. Supervisor?
Yeah, I have another question. How many electric vehicles do we have in our fleet?
Full electric, we have 2.
2? This would be the
Ford
second
Focus
one?
is the second one, and there's a Leaf. That's correct.
Okay, so we have the charging station for just that one vehicle that we have?
We have 2 charging stations, one at 2301 Technology Parkway, and one is here, 481 4th Street, behind the admin building.
All right, that makes a little difference too.
Mr. Chair, can we just return the car and then just start the bidding process, tell all the other vendors how much we have?
Well, we would.
The issue is that we would have, we paid for a charging station as well. That was part of the original discussion item. So we would be out that amount of money.
But the charging station only fits this Nissan vehicle?
My understanding is it has capabilities to charge other electric vehicles as well.
Oh, that's a fixed cost, so there's nothing we can do with that.
Right, but we don't have a vehicle to sit there and use that station until we get one in the future.
Maybe I don't understand it myself. The total price tag is, excluding the rebates, is $31,700. That includes the vehicle and the charging station.
That's not correct. No, $11,000, if I recall, was for the charging station.
Okay, so
in addition to that,
charging station is already a fixed cost, and it's already cost that we incur.
that's correct.
So we have $25,000 available to purchase a car that fits the charging station.
Well, I'm not sure. I can't speak for the Air Board. The Air Board is the entity that actually purchased, that used the $25,000. I mean, probably Supervisor Munzer probably could actually talk to that more than I can.
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming that they went to the dealership and worked out a deal for 4 cars, and which they thought they were going to get the 4 cars for $25,000. We have had the car for a couple months.
Yeah, about there, a month and a half, somewhere around there, a couple months. I mean, my recommendation is, we'll bite the bullet and pay the $4,000. It's unfortunate, but we can utilize that charging station, and as well as remove a vehicle that's emitting high emissions, one of our fleets. So that was the plan.
I don't know if the board wants to hear this or not at this moment, but we do have grant application in the current AB 2766 program for at least 2 more electric vehicles, because the Air District is putting the emphasis on electric vehicles for this grant cycle.
And Mr. Chair, you sit on this board. Will you pass this information on to them?
I will pass the information on tomorrow to staff that this board is not real thrilled with the way this process went down.
Yeah, and for future, if they're expecting us to do this again and partner with them, that they just need to have better method, perhaps, or better information before proceeding.
Yeah.
So
Most
with that
certainly.
being said, I'll make a motion that we authorize the budget transfer.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Post.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I got ahead of you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. It's my fault.
Ouch.
Pat threw me off. I thought we had already done public comment.
I think we owe Ms. Lowe a thank you for looking a gift horse in the mouth. What's the range on this thing? It'll probably make it to Bitterwater, but it won't get back.
They have electricity in Bitterwater.
Hey, go to New Idra. You might get halfway back. What's the range on this thing?
It's almost 100 miles. Sorry.
And the carbon footprint for manufacturing this thing. And you're going to save a couple of tons of carbon dioxide a year, and it's going to take you 6 or 8 years to break even just for the carbon footprint for manufacturing this electric vehicle. 2 tons a year, say. You know how much carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere worldwide? It's on the order of 1 trillion, that's with a T, 1 trillion tons at 400 parts per million. And now you're going to throw good money after bad. It was free money. Came from all taxpayers, not just San Benito taxpayers. Free money. You're going to throw good money after bad to get this free vehicle that you cannot go to all corners of the county in. Thank you.
Hello again. Feel like I have something to say about this particular subject, as I actually own a Nissan Leaf and use it for about 80% of my driving. It's one of the best money savers that we've ever had, to tell you the truth. You know, we charge on a roof, so we have excess electricity that way, but so it's really actually get paid for the extra. But it gets us for most, I used it for commuting for 2 years, back and forth into Watsonville. I use it to come here today. I didn't know it was going to be on the agenda. I don't have to take it for oil change. They don't get oil changes. Very, very low maintenance, quiet. All the people I know who own these vehicles are super happy with them. Sure, it would be nice to have a Tesla with 240-mile range, but you know, not all of us can afford one of those. If they give you one of those at a good price, that would be great. I'd take it. But they have a little plug-in on there that you can plug almost anywhere. Yeah. So you can go out other places, but in most counties and cities, most of the driving is around locally, and it probably cover 80% of it. Not pollute and save you money. So $4,000, I think everybody in this community would love to have one of those for $4,000. They lease them out for about $100 a month. I've been talking to people who said they can't afford not to have one, because they were spending $250 a month on gasoline. And now they're spending $100 a month to lease one of these vehicles. So I think you ought to look into them. I think most cities and counties would do well with a whole big fleet of these. Thank you.
Do anybody else like to address the board on this item?
I'll make my comment really brief. I did want to say that in terms of charging stations and electric vehicles, I think this county should really encourage it, because this is a tourist community. And I've talked to some people who do take into account, we also take into account because of our electric vehicle, you know, whether there is a charging station where we go. And even though we do have this backup where we can basically plug to any house that has an outlet, 120, and even we could plug to 2 120s and get 240. So I'm just saying that in downtown, you know, it would be nice if there were more charging stations. I think it would encourage more tourists to come here. A few years ago, I tried to encourage our community, to county governments, to have more charging stations, and that wasn't happening. Anyway, thank you very much.
Anybody else like to address the board on this item? Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Espinoza?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, as you mentioned, you know, the ability to charge anywhere, so you could plug it in anywhere. That was one of my comments. The other thing I was going to mention is that the charging station is available to the residents. So both at 2301 Technology Parkway in front of the airport, as well as behind this building here. So the public can use that. That's what it's available for, and there's 2 spots for that. Just
And we do have one in San Juan Bautista by, you know, the ballpark, and also there's one at San Juan Oaks for golfers.
Okay, I think we'll back up a little bit and go back to, do we have a motion and a second?
Yeah, my motion remains. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
So that's 4-1. We'll move on to item 18.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I asked this item be pulled, and the reason why I asked, actually last night I was looking at this and it just came to my mind, and I asked myself, I know we're not in the private business. I know that. Let's get us right off the bat right now. We're not in the private business. We're a public government agency. I totally understand that. However, we're about to be in contract with the gentleman to provide insurance education. That's the way I look at it. Insurance education. There are some meetings, some other things that will be made according to amendment number A. However, isn't it in best interest for every single county individual to actually be educated, taught by an insurance broker in the private business that can come in and be motivated to provide the best available product to that individual, to the county, because they will be driven by commission instead by a set contract. And then allow this individual, this group, to have a professional relationship with county employees in which other financial packages, other financial vehicles can be offered to county employees. Because the way it is right now, it's a set structure. You will provide a set of meetings, a set of educational seminars at a fixed cost per month. And so the motivation to make a profit on the insurance perspective won't be there. Unless I read this transmittal wrong, I just feel that there's no motivation, and it'd probably be better if we actually go into the private business, have someone make a bid to say, I will take this job at $200 a month, $300 a month, $400 a month, and with the understanding that I will have the ability to communicate with our county employees. And that's the reason why I pulled that, to ask the board to see how they feel about that concept.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor. Let me try to address your questions. Basically, this Jack Winder Insurance Services, he does not sell us insurance. He has been an advisor with respect to benefit plans, a resolver of issues. So this role has morphed, as I understand. I wasn't aware of this contract for the first several months I was here, and then became aware of it, and I met with Mr. Winder, and the scope of work seemed a little odd to me. I think it's morphed over the years, because now the insurance programs that we have CalPERS Medical. He has nothing to do with that, except that sometimes when there are problems with an enrollment, whether that's between CalPERS and the employee or CalPERS and the county, they can be extremely time-consuming to straighten out, and he steps in and kind of handles that, where we don't have staff to do that, or it would take staff away from critical activities elsewhere who could not handle that. So that's kind of one function. I think when this contract was first started, we were not part of the CSAC, the excess EIA that provides, say, our vision insurance, those kinds of services. We also have, I haven't quite straightened this out, but we have a number of programs through AFLAC, which I don't believe we should be funding anyone to help us with that. That should be, if Aflac is making a profit from our employees buying these voluntary insurance plans, they should be handling those, and I'm still trying to unravel that piece. So the reason this is before you is I received a bill for services for June. And I thought, well, I better check and see what our contract says to make sure that the bill was accurate and so on and so forth. As I pulled that, I realized the contract expired June 30th. The bill was accurate, but oh my gosh, we need to do something because we have not canceled this contract. And with respect to that, the gentleman is still continuing to provide the services he has been providing, whether they're fully utilized or not. So what I was trying to do here was put this contract into place, which we've had since, I think, the 90s, and it has not been bid. There hasn't been any new RFPs, any new determination of whether the scope of services should change, and I think that probably needs to happen. But to do that when we were under the gun in late July and try to put that together that quickly, my suggestion or recommendation was the best option was to extend this contract, which does have a 30-day cancellation clause, for 1 year to give the office some time to look at, do we need this? Do we need this as is? Can we better explain how those services are utilized, or should we change that scope of work? And possibly, as the Human Resources Department is actually staffed and has an analyst on staff, possibly that work could be absorbed and there's savings to be had, and maybe this contract could be minimalized. Maybe we don't need it at all. I'm just not in a position to say right now, and I didn't want to put the county in that position of cutting something before we had a chance to really understand it.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I totally agree and totally support this plan. We do have an audit committee, and I think the audit committee should play some role down the road, early next year. And I'm okay, Mr. Chair. Let's move forward. I'm comfortable. What you said, I'm comfortable, and maybe that was my compromise to hear from you to say that. Thank you.
No problem, and I like your suggestion with respect to the audit committee as well, because I think there's a lot of questions that still need to be asked. One of the things I looked at in this particular contract is because we're a little behind the 8 ball in getting affordable health care implemented, not in the community, but for potentially our community of interest in terms of whether we have temporary employees who may qualify for affordable health care. And one of the thoughts I had was to use Mr. Wender's services to kind of help us pull that together and make sure we're in compliance with the law in order to avoid penalties to the county with respect to affordable health care.
Yeah, and it's, Mr. Chair, and it just makes how can I put it this way? Good neighbor sense. I don't know what the word is. Good policy in there. I don't know. But we got to have some local folks here that are some expert in this. We got out of, what, Clovis? We got to have it out of Hollister. I'm sorry.
I'm not arguing with you. All I'm saying is there's work to be done, but in the meantime, I don't want to just cut the string, not knowing what all the ramifications or repercussions of that would be. But again, this is through June 30th with a 30-day termination clause in between.
Supervisor Botello?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I, like you, Supervisor De La Cruz, when I was reviewing my agenda, I took a real hard look at this one as well and started asking some questions in my own mind. And as far as, this level of, scope of services that we receive from, this insurance service company, and, I came to a conclusion that it's not that big of a cost, and the expertise should be able to answer certain questions that our staff would take quite a bit more time and divert from other, tasks. And so, but this is kind of ironic. I discussed this with the chair, and Supervisor Rivas and I have a meeting, in fact, tomorrow with a more local insurance provider to kind of go over maybe some of these issues that we might be able to get it done at a different cost, as well as enhanced services and enhanced benefit to our employees, which is, I think, is very important to this entire board. And I agree that at some point maybe we should review this, but perhaps we keep things in place until we know what our next steps are going to be. It's very preliminary, this meeting that we're scheduled to have with you know, some staff members and Supervisor Rivas and I, in fact, tomorrow. But I think it does need some work, that's for sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Barris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Georgia, I was comfortable moving forward with this because I know that it will be looked at shortly and see if the scope of work is acceptable. I have to say that I have had personal experience using this service. Very, very efficient. When I called him, he called me back immediately. We had communication, and it dealt with a very complex health insurance issue with my husband's surgery, and I was very happy and glad to have somebody like him to help me through the process. And so, because of that, I know that this service is really worthwhile, and hopefully other staff and employees are using them.
Well, one of the things that I would like to see, and this is why I like the idea of the audit committee, is some kind of feedback on, with respect to reporting back of work to be done, you know, what happened during the last month or the last quarter kind of thing, because we don't necessarily have that. I know I've referred several different people with some complex issues to Mr. Wender, and he has resolved those issues, and the expertise does not currently lie in HR, and sometimes that becomes difficult. If that staffing level changes a little bit, that may be different, but again, it's that reassessment. What do we want to have? He doesn't provide, we don't buy services from him, we buy his service, not insurance, but he is an expert, I will say that.
Yeah, and I got that impression. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
With that, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone from the public like to address this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Marty Richmond again from Hollister. The idea of having the advisor separate from the provider is an excellent one. You do not want your advisor. Rule number one is you don't want your advisor to be a provider. Rule number two is you don't want your provider to be the advisor, because then they have a vested interest in your claims. They have a vested interest in who you buy things from. I don't know the firm. I don't know their performance. So that you're going to, obviously, from this discussion, you're going to rate all of that. But the idea of having a separate expert in an area that requires a lot of expertise, including sometimes the expertise to negotiate by calling the provider and saying, you know, you could file this claim under number case, you know, this type of a code and get it paid rather than under the code we have and not get paid. So there's a lot of ins and outs to medical insurance. It's unfortunate. I get my 28 or 30 page monthly thing from Medicare, and I can hardly read what it really means. So having an individual who is independent of the provider for what seems like a pretty reasonable fee, if there's no limit on how many times you can get called, but it would pay to have them track without personal information, so you don't violate HIPAA, track how many cases they handle a year for us, because a lot of these take a lot of expertise, and a lot of the happiness you have or unhappiness you have with your health insurance depends on whether or not you get paid or not. So having the insurance is only step one. Arguing with the insurance company is step two, and an expert can really help. So I think having an independent firm is excellent. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve a contract extension between County San Benito and Jack Wonder Insurance Services for the period July 1st, 14 through June 30th, 15th, in an amount of $12,099.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. I think that takes care of the consent agenda.
I think there's
I believe there's one more, number 19.
Oh, 19, I'm sorry. So move on to item number 19.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a fairly easy question, I think, to answer. I don't think it'll cause as much stir as the last one. On this appointment, I'm not sure what the county's actually doing. Are we not in the contract anymore? Is we hiring this person as an interim director, and he's going to be a county employee? Is the contract going to be? I would just really like clarification. I didn't understand the item at all.
So perhaps I could answer. As the board knows, it entered into a contract with the Interwest Consulting Group, and in that contract, the purpose of the contract was to obtain services from Interwest Consulting Group for the interim director of public works. And in that contract, it named the employee, the Interwest employee that would be provided to the county for that position was Mr. Horwedel. Separate from that, though, we believe that the board needs to pass a resolution specifically naming the interim public works director because the contract is with Interwest Consulting Group, not with Mr. Horwedel directly. And the importance of this is that we have to have an officially named, officially approved public works director in order to sign off on state and federal grants, application, contract reimbursement. So really, this is just more of an abundance of caution. We don't want to have any issue down the road with the state or federal government making any allegations or raising any concerns about where is the official appointment for the interim public works director. So that's all it is. The contract is with Interwest Consulting Group. Mr. Horwedel is an independent contractor. He is not an employee of the county. However, he is acting as the interim director of public works, and we need a resolution stating that.
Is there any questions of the board?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair? Go for it. Okay, I just want to say that we are going to receive support from other members of Interwest. It's my understanding that we have, although he will be named the interim director, that we will have other resources available to us through Interwest. So I'm pretty sure I'm correct in that. It's my understanding.
Yeah, you are correct with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ray or Matt, nowhere did I see, are they going to have any type of direct supervision over the current public works employees?
Excuse me. Well, your resolution is naming him as the interim public
So
works director.
that by itself defines direct supervision?
Yes.
Okay. Because we had a situation in the past on a different department.
Right. But that's apples and oranges. So.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you.
With that, are there anyone from the public who'd like to address the board on this item?
Marty Richmond again from Hollister. I hope my comments are apropos. They're not off base. They're kind of related to this. Is the board's intention to essentially cement this relationship forevermore, or are we going out and looking for an employee and this is an interim solution? Thank you for your time.
Mr. Espinoza, would you like to address that?
Yeah, no, as it's stated here, it's an interim, so it's just going to be for a short period of time, and right now we're working with HR on evaluating. We actually have Optimity right now evaluating our organization, and once we receive that report back, then we'll start addressing the organization, and in particular, the Public Works Department.
Supervisor
Yeah, and that's exactly what my understanding is that this is a interim, appointment, in that we're reviewing our, organizational structure, and we're make a decision on that, and then go and move forward with, a permanent replacement. So that's why I'm going to support this at this period of time.
Anyone else from the public like to address the board at this time? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve 2014-75, resolution number 2014-75.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Now I think we're done with the consent item, and we'll move on to a public hearing, I believe. Mr. Espinoza?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're on item number 22 today, this morning. This is a public hearing brought to us by Jim Riding Sword out of our Health and Human Services office. This particular item is to hear all objections, protests, or request changes or corrections to the written report of service charges for County Service Area number 36. So we have Jim here.
Yeah, if I may, I'd like to just actually kind of read into the record the background on this. And that is that pursuant to Government Code 2510.77A, given continual effect through Government Code 2510.3D, the Board of Supervisors is required to hold a public hearing to consider an annual written report for the extension of services for county service areas and the benefit assessment charges set forth in the report. The annual report for CSA number 36 for emergency medical services and enhanced life and advanced life support, and the charges considered for FY 2013-14 is attached for your review. Upon the conclusion of the hearing and no objection to revise, change, reduce, or modify, the Board of Supervisors may adopt a resolution accepting the annual report and adopting charges set forth therein.
Are there any questions of the members of the board?
Yep.
Seeing none, I will open the public hearing unless you have anything else, Jim?
No.
Okay. With that, I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards on this item? No. Okay. Would anybody from the public like to address the board on this item during the public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And Jim, you still have, do you have anything else, or?
Well, it says no, if there are no objections to revise, change, or reduce, the Board of Supervisors may adopt a resolution. I'm assuming council at this point in time.
So what's the pleasure of the board?
I will make a motion, Mr. Chair, to adopt Resolution 2014-76, accepting the annual report for CSA number 36 and benefit assessment charges set forth therein, and authorize our chair to sign.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. With that, we'll move on to item number 23. Mr. Espinoza?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're on our regular agenda now, and we have our Ag Commissioner, Ron Ross. He's going to be presenting to your board as well as the residents within our community the 2013 crop report. Ron?
Is yours on there?
Yeah.
Exit out of here.
Down here.
There you go.
So how do you do this? Function key? Okay, good. All right, we're online. Okay, pass this down. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm going to present the 2013 annual crop report at this meeting. We're passing out the report. On the front cover, you'll see a picture of apricots drying off at Fairview Road. Decided to put that on this year is because it's kind of one of our legacy crops. Apricots, even though they're just a fraction of the acreage that used to be, it's still $1 million crop in the county, and it's one of the things that kind of makes this county a little unique from the rest of California is the ability to grow such great apricots, especially in the Fairview Road area. But we'll talk a little bit about what happened. We're going to also talk a little bit about 50 years ago, about some of the crops and how different changes and what's happened in the ag industry. But anyway, getting back to the crop report. The crop report is required annually by state law. It's something that we prepare in our office. It's used by many individuals, institutions, businesses to view the economic health of not only the county's agriculture, but also the state's agriculture. It's 2013. I know we're in the middle or past the middle of 2014, but it takes quite a while to get all the data from all the producers and analyze all the yield and price data. So anyway, I'm pleased to announce that we have a new record in San Diego County for gross returns. In 2013, the gross returns was $330 million for all of agriculture. And that breaks our previous record, which was done just a year past, at $298 million. That's a $32 million increase, and if you do the math, it's a 11% increase from the previous year. And what's important to note on this, and I talked a little bit about last time we did the presentation, is it's $330 million what the local farms have produced, but there's also a multiplier effect. And the multiplier effect, what that is, it's additional money that's generated in the region from support industries. In other words, there may be a cost, there will be, crops will be produced here, but there's also the transportation to get it to market, to get it to processing. In order to grow the crops, supplies have to be purchased, such as fuel equipment, everything from drip line to repairing sprinkler systems to equipment purchases, such as trucks and so forth. Monterey County did a study a couple years ago, and they determined in this area that the multiplier effect is 1.6. So what that means is for every dollar of farm income, there's an additional 60 cents that's put back into the region, not necessarily this county, but this region, as far as additional additional income that's generated by this. So when you take a look at the $330 million and you multiply that by the multiplier effect, we're talking about over over $500,000, $500 million, which is over $500 million that goes back in the state's economy, just from what's generated right here locally. We had a fairly good year for a lot of the crops. The biggest increase was in vegetables, and the reason being is we had an increase in acreage devoted to vegetables, and we had fairly good prices. For a lot of commodities, the prices were higher than they were last year. Some of the biggest gains as far as acreage and price were in spinach and head lettuce and onions. Also, for our orchard crops, contrary to the previous year, the weather cooperated for most crops, where we had a big increase in cherries, apricots, walnuts, and other vine crops. And unfortunately, I think apples, they're kind of break even more or less, but for some of the tree crops, we did very well. For example, the price of walnuts went up by more than 50% what they did from previous years. Lately, the walnut market has been very good for the producers, and there's been a few new walnut orchards being planted. It's actually, the walnut prices are so good that if you wanted to plant a walnut orchard today, you'd have to wait 2 years for the nursery to be able to produce trees to get the trees to you. So there's some positive things that are happening, and walnut seems to be one that's been increasing every year. Last year was the second year of the drought. This is the third year that we're in presently. We Because of the drought, there was very few cattle that was sold or produced, but also the prices are very high. So even though we had less cattle produced due to dry conditions, the high prices made up for that. What we did this year was we kind of expanded our crop report. We put a page in there about what things looked like 50 years ago. And we take a look at some of the statistics of what 50 years ago was. It was primarily field and orchard crops. Orchard crops would be the largest producer as far as value. Field crops are like hay and grains. And at that time in Hollister, well, up in the Hollister area, there's quite a few areas that were dry farmed. In other words, dry farmed is that they would plant grain and rely on the rains to bring it up. And over the years, the dry farming has declined, and either those areas have been put back into rangeland or converted to other use, or they've been put into vegetable crops or tree crops, which yield a higher yield. So it's kind of changed. If you take a look at the crop report, which, like I said, on one of the pages it does talk about that, in 1963, some of the biggest top 10 crops were like prunes, sugar beets, chicken eggs. You know, those are commodities we don't have anymore. It's kind of interesting as agriculture is not static, it's dynamic, as people's tastes change and markets change, and a lot of stuff gets exported now than it didn't used to before, is that the crops change too along with all those changes. Just to kind of give you an idea how agriculture has changed over 50 years, and our crop report in 1963 said the total value was $24 million. If you take a look at the consumer price index and you see how much $24 million is worth, in today's dollars, it's $156 million. So you can see that not only has agriculture kept up with the consumer price index, but since it's more than doubled, so it's outpaced the consumer price index. So it's probably maybe twice as important as it was 50 years ago. So we're talking about $330 million currently versus $156 million if you adjust for inflation from 50 years ago. So it's going places. Also, we've kind of expanded our crop report. We don't do an annual report of our department's functions. So what we did was we included in this current crop report a few pages of some of the things that we do, not only some of our agricultural programs such as organic food regulation or pesticide use enforcement, but we also have a page in there about some of the weights and measures activities that we do, and another page on some of the mosquito abatement, some of the responsibilities we have with that program. So anyway, it's taking a look at 50 years and then taking a look at what's now. It's kind of like what's the new trend? What is agriculture going to look like in 50 years from now? We all know we have to eat, so there's going to be something growing here in the fields. And before, the prominent crop was really orchards. Now it's vegetables. But over the last few years, we had some more orchards being planted. So does that mean orchards are going to be the prominent crop? You know, maybe not. But maybe there's going to be a brand new crop group that we didn't anticipate that's going to be, you know, what Samuel County will be known for. So it's changing, and it'd be interesting to see what happens 10, 20, 30, and especially 50 years from now. But in order for agriculture to be sustainable here, there's certain things that have to continue to happen, and that's a favorable business climate, favorable regulation requirement. The problem with farming is that you can regulate a lot of industries, and they can just adjust their prices to make up for the cost of those regulations. But with farming, with agriculture, is that you're kind of at the mercy of the markets. So if you over-regulate, say, in agriculture, those producers don't have the ability to adjust their price to make up for that regulation. And they may be forced to relocate to other regions, or hopefully, you know, hopefully this won't happen, but to overseas. And I really don't think that the idea of having our food outsourced from a foreign country is really good. So those are things to think about as we proceed further. And another thing is favorable land use decisions. When we have situations, we're now starting to grow again. Hopefully that the growth that we have in Hollister is not going to impact agriculture by creating ag-urban interface issues. In those types of situations, no one seems to win. The farmer's not happy with the neighbors. The neighbors aren't happy with the farming, and all of a sudden it becomes less easy to do farming activities, and you have people moving. So I'm hoping that the community will still support having agriculture as a major component, and that we have smart growth and not put them in areas where there's going to be issues where we have conflicting land use, urban uses and agricultural uses. So anyway, that's what the state of the economic health for agriculture is.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Supervisor Bertello?
Yeah, I read this, when did you send it to us? Earlier in the week, and I really appreciated the inclusion of, what things looked like 50 years ago and how agriculture changes and in our county, and that's something I've always have said to, different groups that, things were quite a bit different from my grandfather's day, and even within my own lifetime I have seen a evolution of crops and employment and generation of dollars in our own county, and it was very well described in your crop report this year. I want to make a point as far as how did San Bernardino County increase its value with agricultural production, which you showed that we've exceeded the inflationary dollar value, and really it can't be undersaid that it has to do with water, quality water, the investment that this county, both our urban residents and rural residents invested in the San Felipe project, changed the face of agriculture forever and increased the value of what we can do here in San Bernardino County, and that's hold true. If you have good quality of water, you could grow anything, and we've been able to have that the last 3 decades, and hopefully that will continue going into the future as as you said, agriculture will continue to evolve and what we grow here. But it's very important for this board and future boards to understand that land use decisions is a key factor as far as how we keep the industry vibrant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to give kudos to you, Ron, and to your staff for this wonderful comprehensive report. It's great news. I just hope that with our water situation, we can continue to support our agricultural community and do everything that we can to protect our resources so that we can continue to have this kind of production, and which is worldwide, goes worldwide. So we do provide quite a bit of food to the entire world. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just, Ron, thank you very much for giving us perspective of what has transpired in the last 50 years. I remember I used to work on the walnuts and the prunes, and I don't see that or hear that as much back then, because I remember our parents used to do it during the winter break or right before school so we can make enough money to buy our own school clothes, and somehow that industry is kind of going down. But I am noticing in the organic walnuts, it's in the increase. Somehow it's producing a bigger yield or bigger value per ton than just regular walnuts. Thank you for the input.
Okay, would anybody from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I guess we need to authorize the release of this report to the public.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2013 crop report and authorize the release of this report to the public via the department website.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, thank you, Board. I'll have a few copies that I'll leave up front of the crop report. And this afternoon, I'll go on our website and go ahead and add the crop report so it'll be available on the website to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 24. Mr. Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're on item number 24 this morning. This is with regards to the lease at the Veterans Memorial Park, in particular, bringing to your board a lease with the city of Hollister, as well as expanding the current square footage of that lease, of our current lease, to a higher square footage. So we have Sarah Fontanos here to give you a presentation. I believe it's going to be PowerPoint, a quick PowerPoint presentation, and a quick discussion of what the lease is.
Good morning, everyone. I do have a PowerPoint for you that I'm hoping after the end we can have a approval of the revised lease. But before I start talking about the revision of the lease in detail, I'd like to read you a piece of information from a report I found while researching this subject. It reads, skateboarders and skate parks, skateboarders in the skate parks they call home are often misunderstood. When compared with traditional team sports like football and baseball, which have become ingrained in our culture, skateboarding and action sports are still on the fringe of mainstream society. Negative stereotypes continue to portray skateboarders as social outlaws with little respect for authority. It is not surprising then that the skateboarders are looked upon in a similar light and are often low priority in planning efforts. Along with that section, there are some common myths about skateboarders that I found. One, that skate parks are dangerous. Skateboarders are delinquents, and that skateboarders are a very small minority of recreation population. When in actuality, if you look at statistics, basketball can be seen as more dangerous than skateboarding. The stats for injuries for skateboarding is 8.9 for every 1,000, inline skating 3.9 for every 1,000, and 21.2 for ER treatments for every 1,000 for basketball. Being perceived as a delinquent, skateboarders, the average skateboarder is an adolescent male, and typically perceived delinquent because they're usually lacking a designated area and then are perceived as a nuisance or a liability. In regards to being a small minority, there's actually 13 million of our population in the U.S. that are active skaters. About 16.5% of the youth, ages 5 to 24, are active. If you were to include bikes, rollerbladers, and scooters, it's actually much more significant. There are 5 benefits that I found in my research for skate parks. One, that a community gathering place does help build social skills and it encourages civic responsibility. 2, skateboarding having positive effects on mental health. Found something very interesting in 2006 in elementary school in Boulder, Colorado. They actually began incorporating skateboarding into their physical education program, calling it Skate Pass. The program director, Eric Klassen, wanted to bring the activity as an alternative, non-competitive individual sport, and found through other research that it actually benefited the children in their growth and, having an activity outside of school and being able to come back and being more receptive to what they were learning. Skateboarding promotes health and active lifestyles going along with mental health. It's a very unique sport in that it requires extreme physical exertion, but at the same time, a lot of balance and coordination. Fourth thing, criminal behavior, reducing it. The thought is that providing a place for them to go reduces other activities. So in an area that there's not much to do, they have something that's engaging and challenging. And finally, the fifth benefit being that a skate park actually attracts tourism. Once people children find out that there's an actual place to skate, they want to go there. There aren't many of them in certain areas, tons down south, but not typically, in a lot of other areas, not typically popular. So today, we'll be looking at the lease. It did expire in 2013, but there's a clause in there that allows it to renew every year. I'm not sure if it's news to you, but a lot of the Park and Recreation Commission meetings, and I believe the Veterans Commission meetings, the youth and their parents have come to talk about needing an expansion of the area because of multiple use and hoping for more challenging terrain and obstacles. This lease has been reviewed by the Park and Rec Commission and the Veterans Commission, and a couple of revisions were requested to the item. So these list, the 11 here, as in the report, identify the changes to the lease, which is otherwise the same, not including these things. So I didn't want to go into them specifically. Of course, we can ask questions, but I have a few other things to show you here. Let's see. So I have a picture. This is our current facility. just a couple pictures there. What the lease would do is expand it into the basketball area. So as you can see here, you can see the formed portion, and then the basketball court area being blank. I wanted to provide you also some typical design and build costs if they were to do this. Anything over between 10,000 and 15,000 square feet is typically considered a regional park just because of the space of the skate park. Doesn't mean that the whole area, this additional 18,000, if I go back, the additional 18,400 square feet would be completely obstacles. But per square foot, typically my research, it ranges from $20 to $55. So you can see there, $268,000 to almost $1 million, usually in redesigning and building. I was able to speak to someone down south very familiar with redesigning skate parks and building them. A lot of the cost is 20% is the design. You want a professional facility, something that will last. They stay away from steel structures, one because of the noise and that it doesn't last most of the time. The good news is there are other options. There are plenty of designs throughout the United States that are under $100,000. The two here, one's in Texas, the other in Virginia. The square footage is 2,100 square feet for $45,000 and 7,500 for $45,000. And these two, or at least the one on our right, is more in line with a skate plaza. A lot of the facility designs now, another complaint is that they're intimidating skate parks, but designs today are incorporating multiple use, picnicking, other people in the area enjoying the facility as well as skateboarders. And there's also, in researching, tons of funding opportunity, community development block grants, donations from skate industries have occurred for many of the designs that you see, especially for the $1 million designs. And again, those higher cost ones are in areas of very large populations, Los Angeles, et cetera. So I don't want you to be fearful of that high dollar amount. Business corporations, a lot of people, having their plaque out there for advertisement will pay a portion even. But youth fundraising events was a huge one, and I thought something very interesting since the community is really wanting this. Car washes, I thought the bottle drive was fun. Some youth actually went door to door and told them about what they were trying to do and collected donations that way. Dunk tanks, not sure if Chairman would be interested in something like that. Or maybe CAO Espinoza.
We'll volunteer him.
But I know this.
We'll talk, Sarah.
I know this is a lot of information, but I just wanted to kind of put your head around the typical costs, what the possibilities are. It's minimal information here, but I think there's tons of opportunity, tons of options, and I think a lot's possible in the area. So if there are any questions about the specific lease revisions or concerns, hesitations, anything I can answer?
Yeah, I have questions. Sure. I appreciate Hollister wanting to put, more of an investment into the county park. And one of the things I've been kind of, I think we all want to see recreation facilities expanded to our population, of course. There's already a skateboard park there, but what is Hollister's logic or Parks Commission's, I don't know, logic? One of the things I'm critical about is trying to spread resources through other areas of, of our, urban zone. And, I don't understand why we don't put the skateboard park, or Hollister puts the skateboard park, say, at the Brigantino area, sort of serve the west side of Hollister, or, so to speak. I've, talked to Supervisor De La Cruz about that, but, we're just making, is that skateboard park at Vets Park so impacted that, or there's just so little bit of money available that we can't have a skateboard park on the west side of Hollister and on the central?
I think the interest in this area is that, one, there's already a section there. And it does cost a lot less, seeing how that area is actually already surfaced, which is a huge cost saver. This, I believe, is just a short-term solution to a larger problem. As development and more people are coming, there will be more children. I think this is something that they're trying to do in the next 2 to 3 years, rather than maybe a 10-year plan when more funding could come in for a brand-new park facility, through grants especially. It was actually one of my thoughts, my question myself, like, why are we putting so much time into something here? Maybe the area is already impacted through baseball and all this other stuff. But it is a place that the kids are going, and it is impacted already, and there is the extra space that's already right next door. So I think everyone kind of thought, why not, with the cost savings, and then maybe often into the future we could look at an additional area. Obviously, not my deciding factor, but I think that was the thought process for the area, this one at least.
Okay.
I guess
I still like to see some sort of more emphasis on the west side of Hollister, and somehow even if the county and the city work together, because I see a real need over here.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do support Supervisor Patello's comments. In fact, those comments will raise in the beginning of the process, why not at the west side of Hollister? And the argument was at the time there's already a little park there. The city of Hollister has committed $75,000. Is that correct? $75,000 to the project, and at the Vets Commission, we, with the blessing of the board, we said any money left over from the WOW account will be used. And as of today, I think there's very little money in the WOW money. Right, Sarah?
It's still to be determined, but yes, we're not expecting the $22,000 that was originally decided. So.
Right. And so that thought was conveyed to the members of the community, why not build something outside? And then they said, well, we're looking at short term and we're looking at long term. Short term is we already have a skateboard park in place. The city house is already committed with funding. With the blessing today with the board of supervisors, there might be some money set aside, and it won't over capacity that Vets building, because it's only going to be used up to the basketball courts. They have made recommendations to go beyond that, and we told them straight out, no. You will be confined with the range of the basketball fence and the park that they have, and they're okay. They're comfortable. Yeah. I do believe, and I support that we should help them build a skate park. Obviously, we definitely want it on the west side of Hollister, have a big major park. That's not on their plans at the time being. They're looking at short term with long term ideas of building a big one. So, I supported it. They had their act together. They had a lot of members of the community up supporting that. Kids come before us and ask them. We will take ownership. We will take responsibility of those crime outlets, those concepts that is stereotype of a skateboard park. They tried to address as many questions as possible. Not all of them were addressed, but there were some or enough for the benefits to outweigh the cost. And for those reasons, I felt that it's us to move forward. We are the final hurdle here. The city has approved it, correct?
Correct. They're just waiting conditionally for your approval of it.
So the board of supervisors, we're the final step here today. We can shut this down real fast today, or we can move forward on it today. But you're correct, Supervisor Patello. The goal is to build a bigger one and a better one in 5-10 years. Absolutely.
Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, so I think that idea of a skate park is great and all, but what I didn't hear much about improving the infrastructure out there when it comes to parking lots, and I know that we had a discussion here about lighting, which is a significant concern out there.
Correct.
Because the times that I've been out there, parking is an issue, especially with the gate. The way that the skate park is located and it's fenced off on one end. I believe, and then you have those fields in the back that are used for soccer, and so it's there's certain times in the day when it's really impacted out there. So is there any type of funding that will get that will go to improve that infrastructure out there?
Yes, so from the June 16th budget hearing, we do have money set aside, $50,000 for the 14-15 CIP for lighting at the Veterans Park. There was also priority put on the Bertha Briggs building, fourth for the barbecue pits and the restrooms out there. Now, whether or not how that coordination happens, which one will be first, I'm not totally sure, but I do know that the lease requires that the design and structure plans for the skate park are ran again by our county public works and the Veterans Park Commission, so that coordination can happen.
Supervisor Supervisor De La Cruz, help me remember, because there was some discussion of having a time limit for the skate park to 10 o'clock, and I believe the Vets Commission voted to keep it at dawn to dusk. type.
Yes,
So-
yes.
Yeah, so, which doesn't solve all the problems, we know kids go,
Yeah,
are gonna be kids. But we did kind of address some of that lighting issue at the Vets Park.
Do we
Commission.
have that in place now? The number was dawn to dusk because we didn't want to go beyond 10 o'clock because the lights were not functioning at the time.
Correct. So it was originally dawn to dusk. As it stands right now, it's till 10 p.m.
No,
Okay,
it's
so-
switched to 10 p.m.
It's still.
Correct.
So who's going to solve the lighting issues like around 8, 9 o'clock?
Not certain. Because currently, the parking lot itself doesn't have any lighting yet. There is no lighting at there, obviously, right now that is at least working. I know there's automated switches that do occur so that it turns on by itself. So I don't think that would be an issue, but as of right now, there is no lighting. So
The city's going to have to commit because we're leasing to the city and the city's going to have to comply with the conditions of the
that
lease.
is correct. That's
Okay.
all in the
And I guess, yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that when you have community support has been expressed here and shown, and parent support, this is a great thing to do. I will certainly support it anytime that we can do any immediate, have immediate solutions for the needs of kids, especially recreation. Immediate as far as government goes, I mean, it'd probably take 2 or 3 years to do it, but anything else would take a lot longer. So I have to support this effort. I think it's going to be a really great addition to the park, and it's going to be very well used. There's already a real high demand, so.
When I first heard of this at the Vets Park Commission meeting, I was skeptical and I was almost opposing it because I feel Veteran Park is overutilized, overdeveloped already. I know I've mentioned it several times at the Vets Park Commission, and I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I was watching my granddaughter play soccer, and as we were leaving, the other parents and grandparents were walking away, and there was 2 or 3 adult males on one of the softball field, hitting the ball over the fence and landing near the people as they were walking away. And they didn't holler out any warning. And then when they were some people kind of yelled at them, "What are you doing?" They just kind of shrugged their shoulders. So I think Vets Park is definitely overdeveloped. Looking at this, it is not expanding beyond the footprint of what has been developed, as Supervisor De La Cruz mentioned. We kept them within the footprint of the basketball court, and at that point, I was able to support it. So with that, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone from the public like to address the board on this item? Mr. Councilman Friend?
Good morning. I didn't come here to speak about this, but I heard some questions asked that I thought maybe I could help expand how the city got to the point where we ponied up the money to start this. The one question was, is the footprint doesn't expand. It's already existing locations where the kids already know where to go for a skateboard park. We found out because when actually the parents and the kids came to the city to talk to us about it, there was an awful lot of young men and young ladies that were very advanced in the tricks they do and stuff, and they were having to travel to San Luis Obispo to a skate park that was good enough to allow them to really expand on their abilities. So, they came to us and asked us, why can't we build one here? The question, why don't we build it out at Brigantino Park was, and that is in the existing, we've talked about it at the joint council where there's a lot of ideas about building a new softball complex at the end of the park, and there was going to be a skateboard park in there. That's all being long-term looked at. Short-term, this was the quickest way to get an advanced park for these kids to use. I spent several days out there just watching those kids because I was concerned about security. I was concerned about too many kids on the park at one time, and you've got people out there that are inline skating, skateboarding, and BMX biking. And I was amazed at how those kids policed themselves. Watch out for the young kids. There was nobody pushing anybody around. They sat along the fence. If they were on BMX bikes, they waited their turn. The guys with the skateboards would move out of the way. The BMX bikes would use it for 20 minutes. Then they'd get out of the way and the kids could use it, so they were policing themselves. It was really a good deal. The thing Margie brought up, it was the community that was behind this. It wasn't the city council didn't say, you know, we need to expand the skateboard park. It was the community that wanted to do this. All of us looked at all the infrastructure stuff, the lighting. That's going to be a problem because they're going to want to extend their skating period into 10, 11 o'clock at night. We don't want that. You know, it's going to be a daylight operation most of the time. You're going to have some lighting out there for security in the parking lot, and I believe that's part of the process that we're going to go through. But the big thing was police activity. There's obviously more policemen available in that area than there would be out at the park. Distance people would have to try if there was a problem out there. So all of that being considered, this was a short-term quickie that we could build a quality place for these kids to go. And I think the one thing she pointed out was you know, one of the things you hear from the kids in town is there's nothing to do. Why do they get in trouble? Because they're bored. They spend 6 hours out at that skateboard park. They're not bored, they're tired. They're going home, they're gonna go to bed. And it really does foster that type of community involvement in getting these kids out there. And they're all behind it. I mean, I remember I was on the planning commission when they first wanted the skateboard park, and it was the kids then that wanted the park. And we built it, and they've taken pretty good care of it. It hasn't cost the city a lot of money to maintain that because they're taking care of it. And I believe the basketball courts that are going to be involved in this are underutilized now. Nobody's using them. They're in terrible shape. So this is a convenient way to take that off the books and put something out there we think is going to be used. So I just wanted to give you some insight as to why the city was so far behind this. So that was all I had.
I think Supervisor Botello has a question for you.
Yeah, right. And you know, our committee members did a lot more work on it and are more knowledgeable than I am, and I know just from what you just said, you've done a lot of work. Do you find that, you know, some of the kids from the west side of Hollister make their way over to Vets Park? Is it kind of a intermix of use throughout the whole city, or?
Yeah. Obviously there's not going to be as many as there would be if there was a park on the west side, but they are making their way over if they're serious about wanting to be skateboarders. And one of the issues is to keep them out of the parking lots in the stores and stuff. We give them a spot like this, it's a real challenge to them, then they're gonna make that trip. There's kids out there from South County, there's kids out there from the North County that are being brought in, and there's parents out there bringing their kids in so they can get those skills built up. We've all seen the TV shows where some of these skateboarders make millions of dollars a year. So there's an incentive out there to want to be as good as they can possibly get. There's professional skateboarders that get paid a lot of money to do this. So yes, there's probably not as many from the west side as there would be if we had a park at Brigantino, and I would expect in 10 years there will be a complex out there.
I really support that, and I want to support Supervisor De La Cruz as efforts as far as that side of the district.
And I know that down the road there's some development going to happen in that area, and there's no reason why those developers couldn't help finance that.
I would totally support that. Thank you.
Part of
very
the
much for your
economic
efforts.
development for that area is going to be drawing people into that area. So, okay. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, make a motion that we approve the revised lease for the Veterans Memorial Park Skate Park, expanding the use of the park, skates park facility into the basketball court arena for the period of August 5th, 14th through June 30th, 17.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. With that, we'll take about a 10-minute break.
No, but that's good, too, because those are long-term.
Let's put my glasses.
At some point.
Okay, are we ready to continue? Ms. Espinoza, we'll move on to item number 25.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and we're on item number 25. This morning, we have our Executive Director from First Five, Lisa Faulkner, here. She's going to be giving your board a presentation, fiscal year 2014 through 2017 strategic plan for First Five.
Thank you,
Lisa?
Ray. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for the time today. I think in your packet, I've given each of you a copy of our strategic plan for the next 3 fiscal years. My PowerPoint today is we're just going to draw on the highlights. So I'm going to try to get through this, but I do want to take the time and make sure that we keep that connection and that communication, that you're aware of what First Five is doing in their strategic planning effort. So our objective on the 2014 through 2017 strategic plan was that we update the current plan to reflect revised the framework and the long-term financial plan and organizational structure. So there's been a lot of changes that have happened within First Five California. So I was able to participate in facilitated meetings over the past 2 years and watch the state restructure their plan. And so we learned a lot of nice lessons about what we're doing in San Benito. There was definitely support for the current plan we had, but there was also some ideas and structures that were coming from the state that we were able to take in and incorporate into our plan. So I'm going to kind of talk about that as we get to that. So this has been our planning process. So we've got a grant from the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, and this represents our scope of work with them. And so we really took some time to evaluate what the current opportunities were, what our successes are, what we're currently doing well. And so during that process, we were also mandated by the state to hold public hearings on our strategic plan once a year. So we conducted those hearings, and then the Board of Supervisors, our commission adopted the plan. And so within our scope of work, we want to make sure that we present the strategic plan to your board and hear back and make sure that you're well informed about where our strategic investments are going. Our plan to complete the project, as I've been in front of the commission prior, on behalf of the commission, I presented our effort to separate from the county as a separate independent entity. Some of the opportunities that will be opened up to us as an independent structure, we reviewed and integrated into the strategic plan. So I've been working closely with our county council, and we've presented a letter of intent, so to speak, about our intent to separate, and we've got a initial motion of support from your board, and we needed that to get this Packard money. So I appreciate that previous support. We will be presenting a resolution to go independent with a projected timeline in October. So we're working to answer some of the final questions. We realized once we got into this process, there's a lot more details to be uncovered than we anticipated. And so we're working on those, and Barbara's a great resource for us. And so we'll continue to update you on that project as well. And our target date, if all goes well and we gain your support, is that we're an independent agency starting in the new calendar year in January. So we've had some changes in the county, and those are reflected by representation on our commission. And we've also had some new commission members join our organization. So we're looking forward to working with our new public health officer. I've met with her, and she's one of our designated appointed members from the county on our board, as well as Jim Ridingsword, and of course our supervisor. Those are positions within our commission that will stay, even if First Five achieves its independence from the county as a county entity. We will still have this connection through these designated appointed members. I've asked the staff to come here, and they don't often come to Board of Supervisors meetings, but I really wanted to introduce them, or at least just have them stand up. They're a big part of our structure for the next 3 years, and we have a really great team. Their primary role is to really connect to the families in the community, and they really do a great job. So we'll start with, I've got Anna Eid Godoy. This is Anna Eid, and some of you might recognize her from the work on the Dunn Park project. She was the youth leader, and we've been together for several years, as well as Samantha Hernandez. She's our early learning coordinator, and again, she worked on the Dunn Park project, so I'm really lucky to have them with us. And I'm really, this new strategic plan reflects more of an advocacy role for the executive director. And so while I'm working on those tasks, we have Cindy Lerma that is overseeing operations and the quality of the program. She's our project director for the family wellness. So she's bringing great things to the team. Thank you. Thank you. So I think another reflection of our commitment with our county partners over the next 3 years is seen in our investment into a shared MOU with Employee for Public Health, Ofelia Toledo Prieto. She's got just a lot of skills in public education, parent education, but she also has a background in early ed. So we're really lucky to have her on our team. And I just must say about our facilitator, she did a great job. We had a consultant come in and lead the strategic planning process. We were really happy with the work that she did, and that was Nicole Young. So this is I'm just going to move on to the strategic planning document. You'll notice that mine's a short, abbreviated presentation.
Okay, Lisa, before you move on,
Yeah.
I need something clarified for
Yeah.
myself. We're here today to bless your strategic plan, but I think I also heard that you are looking for a blessing to go independent.
You know, it's very rare that I come before you and not ask for anything. I'm really not asking for anything today. I'm just kind of telling you what within our strategic plan we have discussed over the last 2 years. We have weighed the benefits of moving away from the county. And so that is integrated into our strategic plan as one of our goal areas. And so I will not be asking for a formal motion. In the past, we've received a resolution of support that as we move forward on the strategic plan, that the Board of Supervisors is in support, but had asked us to do the due diligence. So we're still in that due diligence phase.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm sorry, then I misunderstood you.
no,
Okay.
I'm glad for the question because we will be coming back. I anticipate that we'll be back in October seeking formal resolution for you to make a decision around this issue. But it's been part of our strategic planning process, and we've received some support through the Packard Foundation to do a cost analysis and look at the organizational effectiveness and what the benefits would be if we did separate from the county.
Okay, thank you.
So currently, we receive Prop 10 funding, and that for just a little bit of history on that. In 1998, the voters passed the Prop 10 funding, which collected tobacco tax on their products, tobacco products. So currently, First 5 San Benito receives Prop 10 money. When the state gets that tobacco tax money, 20% of that goes to the state and 80% goes to the counties. So our county allocation is based on that 80% from the counties. But there are certain times when we can apply for grants that go to the state. And we currently, I'd like to say, it's good news because our county allocation is around $470,000, but with some advocacy efforts and with the support of Supervisor Barrios, we've been able to gather a small county baseline formula funding that increased our funding over the next 3 years to $650,000. So that is taken from state funding and adding it to the county allocation. And then on top of that, we also seek $100,000 in private funds. So our total budget is around $750,000. So that's an increase, and it's definitely nice to know that we have that contract with the state over the next 3 years. So that's money that we can plan around. So as we began our strategic planning, which is mandated that we do, we have to look at it, we have to review it every 3 years, and we have to go in depth about that plan every 3 years. We followed, aligned our goals to First 5 California. So if you look at First 5 California's strategic plan, it used to be that most of their funding was in children and families. That's what we were doing in the past. And we still are doing that. I really think that the commissioners that came around the table and set the strategic plan for the prior 3 years did a really great job, and the vision that they had, we're carrying that through. We're just adding a few areas and implementing our programs in a slightly different way. So the first one is our children and families. So the goal here is to enhance the system and delivery of services to meet child health, early learning, and family and community support needs. So you're going to see further on in the presentation that actual dollar amount and how we're investing. I'm going to highlight those programs. The second one that we're strengthening here in San Benito is system and network. So you'll see First 5 over the next 3 years really getting behind, instead of funding maybe supplies or one particular program, you'll see them cultivating a network and really trying to maximize the resources that exist already, or if there's gaps, working with that network to attract more money into the county. The third might have always been there, but this public will and investment became important to First 5 when Governor decided that it was a good idea to take all of First 5 Prop 10 money. And so we always wanted to have public goodwill. We've always worked towards that, and I think that First 5, they've done marketing studies, and a good thing about First 5 is they enjoy a lot of community support. But First 5 California made it a priority to really make sure that, one, we were accountable, and two, that we reported out our outcomes to the community so that they understand what we're doing with our investment. And then this final one is a new one at the state level and also at the community level here, is to look at our institutional development. And I think that that's where it comes into play when we talk about that we were going to look at making our structure the most effective that we can, and also look at long-term funding and sustainability planning. So it allows the executive director to report out on the work that we do in that area. And First 5 is recognizing that for sustainability, oftentimes the work of the executive director could be around advocacy, policy, things that are maybe more sustainable. Okay, so are there any questions before I move on? Okay.
Any questions of the board at this time?
Thank you, Chairman. So this first area is our the way that we're serving our children under the strategic priority number 1 is with our family wellness program. So I really want to get out today the information that First 5 is conducting parent education at 8 sites throughout the county. So we're in Aromas, we're in San Juan, we're in the rural communities. We're going to people's, we're doing home visits in our rural communities. We definitely have many sites within the Hollister city limits. So there are different topics. We're implementing evidence-based curriculum. We've invested in training for our staff over the last 4 years so that we can really look at the quality of that parent ed. And we knew that in order for us to have families come in and parents go to these meetings, that we had to plan for a quality early childhood environment at the same time. And that's definitely one of our passions in First Five is to provide that early learning experience. So when we're out doing parent ed, we are also out doing playgroups. Part of the health, part of the wellness, we do injury prevention. So we're placing car seat checkups to our program participants. We're replacing car seats. We are conducting screenings at health fairs. And I'm happy to say that we've added story times at both libraries in San Juan and here in Hollister. So kids from 0 to 3 can go to the library on a weekly basis and participate in story hour and early learning groups. So I'm going to move on. This is the family wellness that integrates how we serve our family and children. I'm going to move on to the next priority area. So I'm very excited about the literacy and data sharing investment. So we're starting to look at how we can really change the course and direction and keep people on course so that they have happy outcomes, not only academically but in life. And so all the research and all the studies that we look at, and we go to a lot of summits at First Five, and everyone can kind of agree that if you can teach a child how to read and read fluently by 3rd grade, they really are set up for a more likely successful future. And so First Five really wants to look at this issue deeply in collaboration with county partners. And so we think that it would really be an added benefit to the community to establish a database system so that when families check in for services, that we know. So say some families are in crisis and they go to Health and Human Service Agency, or we have some kids out in the rural areas that are truant. We think at First Five that those are families we might want to provide services to. So we see a real benefit for shared data, and we see that if we can get a hold of this data in real time, that would direct our investment and our services. So you see a lot of great efforts going on where they're collecting a dashboard of data. Well, what we would do is add to that where we'd collect longitudinal data about families that need services. So what we would like to do as far as the collaborative, we want to build the intellectual property or the group of people that would look at this data system. And so this would be a major investment. We've realized that building a collaborative in a short amount of time isn't a true collaborative. And a definition that I like to use now for collaborative to let me know if this term is being used correctly is if all people at the table are willing to spend their money jointly and make joint decisions. I think when you really can get a group to agree on how they're going to use their own agency money together, I think that is a golden ticket for collaborative. And that's what we're aspiring to do, is pull together resources. And that leads me to our work with a literacy campaign. And so we're launching this collaborative meeting on September 11th and 12th, and it's called Literacy as a Legacy. We believe that people read when their parents love to read, and to address literacy, we need to get the whole community involved. And so I'm here today. I do want something from you, Chairman Munzer. I want you to think about joining our collaborative and sending a representative from the commission or from the Board of Supervisors to attend that training. You'll see an invitation in your mailbox about the details of that, but in general, we have some people that have established or that are coming in to be facilitators for this training. And they're recognized for their work in Northern Ireland. They're pretty amazing, and they're going to spend 2 days with our community members and talk about how we build a collaborative so that we can move forward and really deeply invest in this area of literacy. Are there any questions about this?
Mr. Chair, Lisa, trying to say the right words. I guess identifying the families and needs, and then walking them through the process, and then in some future time doing an impulse of, did it help these families that we identified 2 or 3 years ago to the point where they become able to read and write at age 3? Is that what it is? Age 3?
Third grade.
Age 5? Fifth grade? I mean,
third grade.
Third grade, I'm sorry, age 5, third grade. You're going to develop some type of tracking system. You're going to create a system in which you identify families and needs and all that stuff, right?
So we've got, I'm glad that I'm not doing it, but we've got this great consultant, or we'll put this out for bid and bring in some great consultants. There's people that are doing this in other areas. A gentleman named Andy Wong is doing this in the Bay Area. And what they know through research is that there's certain indicators that will lead to third grade fluency. They've looked at those indicators in other communities. And then when they found out what things they could do to ensure that, then they got together as a group and targeted that. One of the things, an example of that would be if kids are not attending kindergarten, or say that there's a heavy absentee rate in the rural areas, maybe that data or that indicator maps onto kids that weren't able to read by third grade. So we want to study this issue in San Benito County and find out what is working that's leading towards third grade literacy and what we need to invest in. Maybe there's a gap. Maybe we need to do something about absenteeism, or maybe we need to do a campaign about getting kids to kindergarten, even though it's voluntary. We need to. So we are really investing in the expertise to come into our county and lead a collaborative, and then also build this data system. But we know that if we build a data system, and it's a big investment, and we don't have the buy-in of the community around the data system, that it really won't be utilized. And so, did I answer your question?
Yeah, on a very lengthy point. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
But let me ask you a very simple, general, my thought.
Yeah.
Because at one time I was a member of the First Five Commission too.
Right.
At that time, I remember we used to allocate to organizations like San Benito Health Foundation for the dental program for those kids, to educate them, don't eat sweets, God, I don't even remember now, but method of what to eat, what not to eat, because the young kids, teach them, the old saying, well, mom used to say, just brush the teeth you want to keep.
Right, that's funny.
That's the old saying.
I appreciate that.
And it seems like back then when I was in the First Five, it was all about giving to grantees, to like Hazel Hawkins, San Benito Health Foundation, organizations that actually do more medical checkup, more attention to medical to these 0 to 5 children. Seems like the push now is more of an education concept now.
Sometimes. So these decisions about how these investments are made are really based on the local commission, and we've kind of seen a change. We're following along with the state, that they're kind of showing us that on this literacy collaborative, for example, before we do the investment, we really want to be informed about what's going to make the best impact and what's going to give us outcomes. So before First Five comes in with funding literacy programs, which I think you'll see in the next 3 years, we want to learn as much as we can about this issue. So we're hoping that it's more sustainable change. We're investing in technical assistance. We're bringing resources to the community in a different way. Like you see our family wellness, we're providing less money to that program, but serving more people now, because we're not doing direct granting. It doesn't mean that we won't in the future. It's just that we need to understand what to invest in this area of literacy.
And Mr. Chair, with that being said, and you have extended an invitation and representatives from the county, I will certainly want to be there for this presentation on the 11th and the 12th. But I would also like to extend an invitation to our CAO. I think it would be so critical as the leader of our, of our community to be there and to participate. So, Mr. Chair, if you can support me in that, I think that would be a wonderful thing. This is going to be something, the outcome of this literacy is a legacy, it's going to have great positive impact on the community, not immediate, but on down the line. And I think our chief probation officer, our sheriff, all of these departments that deal with the results of not being literate by third grade will be able to benefit from it. So I'd like to extend an invitation to them as well. So I'm hoping that you will do that.
I think we've sent to you one, Ray. I think that one of the, and definitely I'm glad you brought that up. We've sent one to every Board of Supervisor, and, you know, Robert Rivas has supported our collaborative efforts in the past, and Jaime as well. We had collaboratives around the park, and Supervisor Barros has always been a supportive of the first five since I've been the executive director. I wasn't there when you were on the board, Jaime, but I understand there's some Brown Law acts too. We need to, I just wanted to bring that attention in a formal meeting where if you all plan to attend, we can post it. What's happened in the past is that the board has sent representatives. And so I know that Margie Barrios will represent First Five Supervisor place. And so I wanted to open that up and have you make a decision on that. And that can be just as in the form of an RSVP on your email, so it's not a formal request I'm making now. So one thing you might see in this literacy, for example, in the first year, there's a strong possibility we're going to hear about a program that comes in and trains the whole community around being a volunteer reader, either in the classroom, the workplace, or the library. And so the commission will hear that. And so now that we have it in our strategic plan, it directs my work in grants. And so there's a AmeriCorps grant where it trains the volunteers in a community to do that. So the superintendent and the principals will be coming to that September meeting to weigh in on their support for that program. So we do have some programs happening, but we're looking at creating networks and strengthening the community in a different way. We were finding that we have a bigger impact number-wise, more people that we can bring services to if we gather and cultivate the resources that are here. So oftentimes we're doing that. So this is our system and capacity building for early childhood education. So our signature project here is it's a CARES Plus grant that we get from the state. So it doesn't come out of our county allocation, it's from the state. And so the highlight here is that we have 40 people go into college and receiving credits either for professional development, which we've added this component this year, or college credits. And so it's a great partnership with Gavilan College. We're adding a couple support groups for that. We're training early educators that are taking curriculum classes at Gavilan, and we're having them meet as a team and then provide support in our first 5 play groups. So it's just a really rewarding component. We just met with the CARES participants, and I would say that out of that 40, about 12 are Spanish speakers. And so we have the supports there in that program to support that population. Also, we've added a family strengthening certification. I'm actually a national certified trainer, and we'll be conducting 8 weekend trainings that will allow organizations in San Benito to become certified on understanding what promotes family resiliency within our community. So research shows us that there's certain protective factors that if we go in and strengthen, that even families that are going through challenges are more apt to get through that in a resilient way. An example of that is, do parents have a concrete place to go in times of need? Do they know where the community resources are? Do they have knowledge about child development? So that's an addition to this program. Then the final initiative is really reflecting the state's understanding that the executive director and the work on an advocacy level can create a lot of opportunities at the local level for children 0 to 5. And so this infrastructure category is looking at our organization and making those investments to promote long-term sustainability. And so this long-term, the highlight of that is that our long-term plan is to develop a family and children's center, and in partnership with possibly this collaborative that is coming together around literacy. And what we'd like is to be located in the west side of town.
You got my support ready.
Okay, good. I'm going to call you Tuesday. So on the west side of town, what we'd like is we're finding that there's a lot of people that want to serve that group. I just got done attending a food bank meeting that wants to provide services to Calaveras. I know that this reading program is requiring that we have space on the school campuses. Space is getting tight on those two campuses, and it's a high-need population. And so I really think the commission is in support of putting a family children's center, but it doesn't mean that a satellite library wouldn't be part of that. It wouldn't mean that the administrative buildings could be the Youth Alliance, the food bank. There could be outreach to the homeless student population, things like that. But something located downtown in between the two schools so that the walking community in that area could access those services. And so we want to provide a demonstration program with the CARES people, these new early educators that are going to college, and they're working with Gavilan and our team to provide playgroups and parent education. We'd like to have a program for infants through 5 there and partner with the community. So this center would be truly a collaborative effort, and it's something that we're working on and looking at. So that's in our next 3 to 5 year plan, our long term. And we think that that would diversify some of our restricted use fund balance that comes from Prop 10. And if anything ever happened where the governor again tried to go and say that a certain amount of the fund balance needs to be returned to the state, we would leave an investment that would stay within the community, a real asset to the community. So it has a lot of potential to serve the community now and in the long run. So that is the strategic plan in a nutshell. Each one of those initiatives really warrants a lot of detail in the plan itself. But if there are any questions about the highlights, or if any of you would like me to present in more detail at a later time or individually on the plan in its entirety, I happen to like this strategic plan a lot, and it's in my area of passion. I love to talk about kids, so I'd definitely willing to meet again.
Are there any questions of the board?
Just direction, Mr. Chair, on whether we want to have all the representatives at this presentation on the 11th and 12th of September, because then we would have to post it.
Yeah.
Or we just send representatives and not have the entire board.
I think you volunteered me for a dunk tank, so I'd be happy to return the favor and volunteer you for this endeavor.
I am happy to accept.
One thing, Mr. Chair, if I may, I just wanted to let the Supervisor Barrios know, I did RSVP July 17th, so I'll be attending this
Oh, wonderful.
program, so just so you know.
Okay, so then it sounds like just the representatives is okay then,
Just these 11th and the 12th?
The 11th
It's
and the 12th
11th and the 12th, and I know that Supervisor Rivas has expressed interest in this retreat, so I was just wanted to bring up that we might have more than, we might need to post. It depends on if you're feeling that you might
I might be able
attending.
to attend the 11th meeting,
Okay.
Thursday only. Mr. Chair.
Good. Well, I'll let you three figure it out. I don't think it needs board action, does it?
Well, if we have to post, then we do need board action.
If you're going to split the days, then we'll be okay. We won't have to,
I'm only going to make one day on it.
so maybe
Thursday.
if you want to make one day. Okay.
Coordinate?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. With that, we'll move on to item 26, Mr. Espinoza.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, at our previous board meeting, analysis on the landfill was requested by one of the residents in our community. So today, Mandy, the Director of Integrated Waste Management, is here to give a report to your board as well as the community on answering some of those questions from the public. Mandy?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Actually, this is something we present to the board every year. It's an annual capacity report, and it was conveniently a member of the community asked some questions, so we're able to address that as well. So as indicated in your staff report, the annual flyover yielded, we have approximately 15.9 years remaining in the landfill. This is the current landfill at 500 tons per day. And I will emphasize, as I have many times in the past, that obviously capacity is based on the amount of tonnage we take in. So we take in less, we have more years, we take in more, we have less years. One of the questions from a member of the public was if we were not taking in out-of-county waste, approximately how many years would we have left? There is in the packet, had the consultant just calculate at the 250 tons a day, we're taking in approximately 200 tons of local waste, and at the 250 tons a day, obviously it's doubled. We're looking at 29, 30 years of capacity remaining. As the board is aware, in the new contract with Waste Connections, they were asked to bring in additional tonnage, and they have done so. So as part of this report, I've given you information on where we are with additional traffic as well as the additional tonnage. I do want to make a note that we are averaging approximately 500 tons. Again, averaging, you know, we might take in 900 tons one day, on a weekend we might take in 50. So that's what the average looks like, but next year when we do the capacity report, you will note a difference probably in the average tons per day. It'll be up from the 500. So in terms of the traffic report, you can see from the calculation there, I gave you 2 months of traffic data. And again, I wanted to emphasize that the information I'm providing to you is what we are required to provide to our oversight agency, Cal Recycle. And there is an average of 21 additional trucks per day. So I don't know if the board has any other questions about this. And
Mandy, I guess my question is because it was reported out that we were approaching the 1,000 tons a day.
there have been a couple days where we were like at 950, 980, yes.
So that was only a couple days. It's not consistent.
If you look at the in your packet, and I'm sorry, I don't know what page, because I don't have that information in front of me.
391.
Thank you. You can see the daily tonnage, and if you go to the buried tons on the side, there were several days we were at 900, we were at 400, we were at 100, we were at 32. So
Okay, I understand if you taking the whole year, we're not there, but we're not. I thought we had gotten to the point through the new contracts that they signed with Santa Clara or whoever, that they were approaching the 1,000-ton per day consistently.
I would say that may be true, and the reason why I'm saying may be true for the next couple of months, because it wasn't necessarily that contract with Santa Clara. There was another customer they have. No, I just want to indicate that increased their tonnage, but they are seasonal, so that's going to drop off. So you're going to see a higher tonnage now. It'll be lower in the winter months.
Okay, because when I first read this, I was concerned because at 500 tons per day, we had 16 years
Sure.
left. If we were consistently at 1,000 ton a day, then now obviously we're at 8-year capacity.
Right.
And at 8-year capacity, we need to start.
And Waste Connections is in the process of getting ready to develop the new site. We should have
Okay.
information on that within the next 6 months.
Okay, so
Yes.
that's going to be in their court to
Yes.
do that.
That is part of the
With
contract that they are
contract.
responsible
Okay.
for that.
All right, okay, thank you. Any other questions from the member of the board? Is there any questions from any members of the public?
Marty Mitchell from Hollister. First, let me thank Mandy. I've asked her several times for some information. She's always provided it willingly and thoroughly and completely, so I want to thank her publicly for supplying that information. So I have a very, very simple question to start with. Is the daily tonnage based on 5 or 7 days? Is it 7 day? Is that a 7-day number? Thank you. I hope, I don't, perhaps you saw what I wrote about it. I think the portion of the collection have been made on the trash in the county that I call mandatory trash. In other words, you don't have any option. You have to pay to have your garbage picked up. You don't have to go to the landfill with truckloads of stuff. That's an optional thing. But I think the portion of that was previously dedicated toward the closing should be used to rate stabilize in the future for the ratepayers. I don't think that portion, and my guess is that portion is $2 million out of the $5 million that you expect to get back. And that is purely a guess. I don't have the right number. I just did a kind of a universal thing. And it looks like to me that it would be maybe $2 million. And I think that $2 million was paid in good faith as closing costs by people who were mandatory to pay it. They didn't have any choice. And now that you've sold county assets to get that $5 million back, I think the $2 million, I'm not so foolish to think you should go figure out who paid it and refund it, because that would, just the cost of just figuring that out would eat it all up. But I do think you should use it for rate stabilization so that it offsets for everybody in the county who uses the mandatory trash, and offset that for the ratepayers, because that's what it was collected for. It was collected as part of a business enterprise fund, and that portion of the cost was very specific because it had to be specific, because it was put aside for the closing cost. Thank you for your time.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak on this item for the board? Seeing none, I believe this is just a report. So, okay, we'll move on to the next item. I believe that's you again, Mindy?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is, as directed by your board back in, I think, some early part of April, you asked us to put together an RFP for the Resource Recovery Park. At that time, a subcommittee of supervisors, Munzer and Botello, were appointed to work with myself on this document, which we met and discussed particular items to include or not include. And so what you have before you is a result of that conversation. Not sure if the subcommittee members want to give their report, or?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we certainly, this has been a work in progress for quite some time, and Supervisor Munzer and I and Ms. Rose worked on this through about 3 or 4 weeks anyway, maybe longer, and with a lot of input from the county council's office. And we've come up with this as far as how we can move forward to move to the next step as far as entertaining, proposals to hopefully stabilize rates and provide higher level of services for for the county, and provide a greater benefit with the assets that we possess. And I'm very confident that there will be opportunities for the county as well as our citizens to utilize the Resource Recovery Park, lower the inputs into the landfill, and hopefully recycle valuable items, and that there will be business and jobs created in the future. Thank you.
You will note in the packet there are 2 resolutions required by government code. One is the intent to lease public property. The other is the intent to consider proposals to lease and develop public property. So the way I understand it, and council can correct me if I'm wrong, is that should the board so desire, you would be asked to take these items in the order presented.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Mandy, on the first resolution, in the, one of the whereas, in the kind of wording it different, but, close, is that it is reasonable to expect that future public needs justifies retention of the fee ownership of the property. Does that basically means that in the future, we might actually put another electrical pole there to retain a business that's in the best interest of the community? So better, in a different way, we're still gonna make more public improvements on the property.
I'm looking over at county council. I believe this talks about we're making a statement as to why we're leasing it and not selling it.
Okay, so it doesn't make in reference to that we might actually make some improvements at general funds expense for private organizations to be there. Nowhere in this resolution does it say that, right?
We would not be using general fund anyway. We'd be using the enterprise fund.
The enterprise
for-
fund.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, taxpayers' money or
Ratepayers' money,
ratepayers'
correct.
Okay, I just want to clear this out, that's all.
With that, I will open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this item before the board? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2014-77. And can I combine the other resolution as well? Would be 2014-78. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mandy.
Did you approve the third item?
Oh, wait, I thought he did both the,
Oh, you did them all? Oh, I thought you did the two resolutions, but then the third item is approve releasing the RFP.
The third item.
Yeah.
oh,
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve requests for proposals for the number 0819214 for the planned Resource Recovery Park and authorize the release.
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you to the committee. I know you put a lot of work into this and a lot of time.
Thank you, Mandy. With that, we'll move on to item number 28. Mr. Espinoza?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, the sheriff has put together a presentation that really, these two items kind of overlay over each other. So I'm going to request the chair if we can hear both of the items at once and allow the public to comment on either one of the items. Hopefully that'll be okay with
You
the-
want to do 28 and 29
We'll do
together?
28 and
That's fine.
29.
That sounds fine.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I know we're 4 minutes into 12. Are we gonna stay here till 1 o'clock? Because I see this item being a pile, 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Well, okay, I guess maybe that's a good question before we start
the-
this. Because
the-
we have to come back at 3.
Right, and that's my point.
So how far do we want to go with the regular agenda? We have a couple closed session items. How far do we?
So one caveat with that is we have Joe Ball Gonzalez, our auditor here, to be able to comment on this particular item. He will not be available after 1. So I would prefer if we would be able to hear this particular item now prior to lunch.
And for the record, I think this clock is 5 minutes fast.
I have
You
issues.
should see my clocks at my house. None of them work.
Why is the county clerk and auditor not available when we want him?
That's a good question.
Anyway.
No, that's a good question.
Okay, so we're going to go through item 28 and 29 at this point.
Yeah.
And-
Thank you. And we have our
figure out
sheriff.
the-
We have our sheriff here to go ahead and comment on
And
both
then
those particular
we'll-
items.
After
Sheriff
that,
Thurman
we'll
Thompson.
figure out when we're going to do closed session.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, and good morning or close to good afternoon. We'll make an effort to be rather expeditious with this presentation. Today we're seeking your approval on 2 related items, and I understand that we are going to have one presentation that'll save some time. The items are related to one another. I think the vote will be more relevant afterward for the 2 items. Item 28, seeking your approval on the cost estimates for staffing and operating the proposed jail expansion. And item 29, seeking your approval of establishing a loan of $700,000 to be repaid by an identified source. If you recall, this project began more than 7 years ago by my predecessor, Sheriff Curtis Hill, and the local leaders of that day. We have many people to thank for the work that went into winning this very competitive award. Since that time, you have heard from us on several occasions, each time indicating that you wish to continue this project. We've also worked with your facilities committee, keeping them apprised and updated. The purpose of our visit today, again, is to keep us all on the same page. The state has asked for our cost estimations for staffing and operating the expansion, which also, in my opinion, implies that we are still committed to staffing and operating the proposed expansion when it opens in a couple of years. This jail expansion award is a great opportunity, but unfortunately does not come to us at a great time. This proposed expansion was based on our projected need for more bed space and more program space. Our current facility has been running at, over, or near capacity for many years. This week we were at 154 in a facility that's board rated for 142. We outgrew our jail years ago, which is one of the reasons that we won this award. With our county's population projected to continue to grow, we have no time to waste. This project will design and construct an approximately 24,000 square foot medium security jail facility on approximately 2.6 acres of a 21-acre parcel owned by the county located within the city of Hollister. This facility will provide approximately 72 beds and will include housing, program, medical, custody, and administrative space. The housing space will be approximately 12,400 square feet and includes 6 dorm-style rooms with approximately 12 beds per room, a day room and program space, multipurpose rooms, classrooms, interview rooms, office space, and a central control room. An enclosed, secure outdoor exercise area will be attached to the new housing. The total cost of this project is estimated at $15,846,000, which is roughly $16 million. With a county in-kind match of $748,000, an AB 109 contribution of $700,000, and a cash contribution of roughly $53,000. If you missed that, well, let's say it again. It's a $16 million jail for a cash contribution of about $53,000. Our Public Works Department has been working closely with the state on this project for several years now. At this time, the state is reconfirming with the county that we are in agreement with the projected staffing and operational estimations. In my opinion, our agreement also implies that we intend to staff and operate it. Included in your packet are some cost estimations for staffing and for operating the expansion. We will review those with you separately. I brought a great cast of help with me today, and I'd like to introduce them briefly. Here with us today is our County Auditor, Joe Paul Gonzalez, and Engineer Vincent Lucchesi, Administrative Services Manager is not here. Perhaps she sent her information with someone else from Public Works. Our Probation Chief and Chairman of our Community Corrections Partnership, Ted Baran. Our Sheriff's Administrative Service Manager, Kelly Kennedy, Sheriff's Captain Don Bradley, and our Jail Commander, Lieutenant Edward Escamilla. Not with us today is Adam Goldstone, former county architect and project manager on this project. We owe a huge debt of thanks to Adam for the tremendous work that he put into this project, putting it into great shape before he departed. And next is Lieutenant Edward Escamilla to talk about our staffing estimation.
Good afternoon, Chairman Munzers and members of the board. My name is Edward Escamilla. I am the jail commander for the San Manuel County Sheriff's Office. I stand before you this morning, or this afternoon, addressing the staffing plans for the jail expansion project. Acceptable staffing levels are determined by the recommendations of the Board of State and Community Corrections, which is also known as BSCC. California Minimum Standards for Local Detention Facilities, Title 15, Crime Prevention Correction, subsection 1027 states, a sufficient number of personnel shall be employed in each local detention facility to conduct at least hourly safety checks of inmates through direct visual observation of all inmates and to ensure implementation and operation of the programs and activities required by these regulations. The San Bernardino County Jail, located at 710 Flynn Road, was commissioned on November 17, 1992. It is a 2,800 square foot facility with a board-rated capacity of 142. The proposed expansion will result in 72 more beds in 2 pods and a new wing. The current staffing scheme is based on a 4-team concept. Each team consists of 1 sergeant and 3 correctional deputies. The sergeant is the watch commander for the shift and oversees the deputies who work the floor, which is comprised of all duties from booking to housing. 2 correctional deputies are assigned to transportation and work an overlapping schedule to cover transport duties. With the extension project, we are proposing the addition of 4 correctional deputy positions, 1 for each shift, to be stationed in the expansion wing known as East Housing. The current main jail will be referred as to West Housing. The new jail expansion is being designed with a center control module that shares redundancy with the center control module in the old jail. Both East and West Housing will have the ability to run both housing wings from 1 control station. The center control officer has direct observation of the wing that they are located in. This functional duality provides flexibility when dealing with competing concurrent needs in East and West. It will allow 1 corrections deputy to remain posted in the new East Housing expansion. We have reviewed Section 1027 of Title 15 and are confident this staffing plan provides sufficient personnel levels. We anticipated that the Board of State and Community Corrections would recommend 4 more correctional deputies to assist staffing of the new facility. The estimated total compensation annual cost is estimated to be $329,036. Every effort was made over the past 2 years of the design process to keep operating and staffing costs to a minimum. The facility is nearly double in size. The population will increase our capacity by 50%. Staff size will increase by 15. We feel that these estimated plans are extremely efficient. The Board of State and Community Corrections has already deemed them preliminary approved, albeit minimal. For your review, the current staffing levels are represented on page 3 of the AIT attachment. This concludes my share of the presentation, and do you have any questions or comments specifically for the staffing levels?
Eddie, how many deputies you have right now in the jail?
We have 23.
And sergeants, 3, right, or 4? 3?
4.
4 sergeants? Okay, 23. Is there one shift that you don't have 4?
No, right now we're at a minimum. All shifts have 4.
All shifts have 4, okay.
Yes.
Oh, I see. And then the new plan will to add 4 deputies, right?
Right, one per shift.
1 per shift. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Eddie.
Mr. Chair, I believe this is true, is that we're probably one of the most understaffed or lowest in the state of California. And I believe that to be true.
Yes, we're at minimum staffing.
We're at minimum, and so I wouldn't be surprised that even with the additional staffing, that we're still going to be below the state average. I might be wrong, but I think that's going to be the case, even with the additional staff.
But we do there's 3 positions right now that are out on either medical or some kind of family leave.
Yeah.
But right now we are maintaining a 4-man minimum staffing level.
Thank you. Thank you.
I almost hesitate to ask my question, and I think it's more for the sheriff than you, Eddie.
Okay.
Darren, we just approved to spend $4,000 for a free car that the Air District gave us today. We're spending, what is it, $100,000 to $500,000 per year for our free courthouse. Are we looking at, we're going to get essentially a free jail expansion? Are we looking for a hidden cost down the road at some point that you're going to come back to us with? Thank you.
I think that's a logical and reasonable question. It is no secret that we are understaffed in the current condition. Those of us that were here 3 years ago know that the significant layoffs and cutbacks has caused our jail and our operations staff to both be underserving our community right now. What we're focusing on today is that we are going to have the capacity to grow by 72 at our jail, which we desperately need to do. And we think we can do that by changing our minimum staffing from 4 to 5. There's no hidden cost on staffing other than that. If years down the road, and when we're operating at 214 people and we're struggling to serve them the way that they are entitled to be served, then certainly you would expect to see us back and asking for more staffing. But the truth of the matter is that we're already in that boat. We're underserving our citizens now because of the position that we're in, and I don't think this makes us much worse.
Okay. All right. Yeah. President Patelli?
Yeah, you know, the facilities committee had worked with the sheriff and the previous sheriff for quite a number of years on this jail expansion, and I've been a part of that for quite some time. And you know, this is a $15 million grant that we could expand our jail. It's much needed right now. That window for utilization is closing, and you know, we knew we had time 7 years ago. And we knew what some of the challenges would have been, were going to be back then. I remember, you know, specifically asking Sheriff Hill, you know, how are we going to staff the new jail? And then at that time, we also had the challenge of the county share, and that's been adjusted over the years to being relatively minimal at this point right now. And I was quite pleased at our, you know, last meeting with the briefing with the sheriff and the committee as far as what their plan is to go forward once the jail expansion is in place, and with the staffing levels and how we're going to achieve that. And I think it's been through a lot of, you know, putting together very clever heads to develop that plan, and we won't get another opportunity like this, and so we're at the point where we're convinced from the committee to the rest of the board that we need to move forward with this project.
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor Dela?
quick question on this item. Maybe I just didn't read it last night. I couldn't find it. Where is that new money coming from? Is that the AB 109 money?
Are you referring to the construction costs?
No, I'm referring to the added deputies and.
No. The added deputies that we are showing today in our expected staffing level needs once we open, that money would be general fund money.
That would be general fund money.
Yes. So the operating costs and the staffing costs that we would pick up in 2 years when we open, without some other avenue coming forward between now and then, those would be general fund expenses.
General fund expenses, okay. Yeah. And then the other part of the motion is, it's a different item, okay.
Sure. So where we're at in our presentation at this point is you've heard about staffing, and then next you're going to, unless you have more questions about staffing, the next thing we're going to do is talk about operational costs, and then I'll come and make some closing remarks, and then we'll introduce the next item, which would be the issue of the loan, and we have Joe Paul on hand to answer questions about that, and then we'll come back for a vote on both items. Would that please the board?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Great. Captain Bradley.
Good morning to the board. My name is Don Bradley, and I'm here to represent Sheriff Darren Thompson. It's my pleasure to address you on this project. We indeed have a rare opportunity to expand the capacity of the current jail facility, which is currently filled to capacity plus. Expansion can't come soon enough. Even with 30-day releases right now that were requested from the courts, we can't keep up with the population. If you just heard, as you've just heard, the new facility has a medium security dorm style living design which can accommodate 72 inmates in 6 dorms. New facility is approximately 24,000 feet. Our existing facility is about 28,000 square feet. The new facility will be built next door and occupies 2.6 acres. As you just heard from Lieutenant Escamilla, we're requesting the addition of 4 corrections deputies, 1 for each shift, to occupy and make safe this new 24,000 square foot facility. With this facility comes operational costs. Costs are basically separated into 3 categories: inmate, facility, and staff. You just heard about staffing costs, so my assignment is to review with you facility and inmate costs, which we have predicted for future needs. I'd like to address your attention to the first chart attached to your AIT. It looks like this. I'm going to be talking about this chart. On it, you will see columns titled existing, actually the name of the chart's operating cost, annual breakdown, but the columns are existing, proposed year 1, and total. These numbers are basically the basis for the projected cost for the next 30 years. Currently, existing facility and inmate costs for operating the jail are derived from estimated actuals, which is what we're actually spending this year, which is $1,624,385. The next column is proposed year 1 estimates, which are based on occupying the new physical plant and operating it with 72 inmates on board. These costs total approximately, our estimate is $247,515 in year 1. Some of the facility costs, such as maintenance of facilities and grounds, basically double because we'll be running and maintaining 2 facilities nearly equal in size. When added to existing costs, year 1 operations estimate is $1,871,900, which you'll see in the total column. It should be noted that the year 1 costs are currently scheduled for fiscal year 17 and 18. However, should construction be on schedule, it's conceivable that opening may occur as early as mid-year fiscal year 16-17, which could incur partial increased costs for categories such as staffing, medical, grounds maintenance, PG&E, and various other operational costs. As we know more about the construction as it progresses, we'll be back to address your board and apprise accordingly. Progressing to page 2, entitled Operating Costs Over 30 Years. It's a chart that looks like this in your AIT. The math continues. In year 2, the inmate count is projected to increase by 2.8% in accordance with county estimated population growth. When adding up inmate costs and multiplying by 2.8%, the year 2 added inmate costs are derived at $32,886. So in year 2, you'll see that under the column add inmates, $32,886. Adding the column straight across yields the total operating cost for year 2, which is $1,960,943. The approximate increase over year 1 is about 9.5%, and of course this is an estimate. The columns on page 2 are entitled Existing, Proposed, Add Inmates, and all these columns are increased by 3% a year to account for yearly estimated increases due to inflation and other factors. The 3% number is suggested and accepted by the state as an accurate inflationary portrayal. When combining the columns straight across, the totals columns increases by approximately 9.6% per year. Costs for inmate and facilities are estimated at a total of $113,707,347 over 30 years. We are required to disclose those numbers and ask for your acceptance as well as your understanding that we will appear annually before you, asking you to fund this facility. This concludes my remarks, but I'm ready for your questions or comments.
Are there any questions? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Yeah, thank you. Does this mean that in the future, say year 10, when there's just no money, we have to fund this? So this takes it's
No, it means we'll be standing in front of you asking for the money to fund
okay.
it.
Well, I will tell you that the only control that the board has over the sheriff department is the budget, and I thought I heard you say we're about to lose it. So the answer is no.
No, I can't make you give me a credit card for year 10.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none?
Okay. Going back to Darren. Sheriff Darren Thompson.
Thanks. So we've just heard item 28, and we'll pause there before a vote and move into item 29, which is a related topic. Today, with the help of our CAO and our county auditor, we are proposing a loan in the amount of $700,000 to be repaid at the rate of $100,000 per year for 7 years, made possible by the annual AB 109 contribution. The arrival of Governor Brown's realignment bill, AB 109, brought many responsibilities to counties, including an emphasis on the rehabilitation and programming of county jail inmates during their incarceration. Our local AB 109 committee has allocated $100,000 annually toward the cost of proposed jail expansion because it provides this opportunity for programming. Our latest design revision and the proposed expansion allows for 72 new beds and the capacity to have rehabilitation and programs offered inside of the dormitories. If you're not acquainted with jail operation, inmate movement is very staff intensive. When you open the doors and you ask certain people to come out and you take them certain places, that takes a lot of staff. It provides opportunity for risk, injury, escape, many other things. And so the more services you can provide in the dormitories, the less inmate movement is required and the less staff that you need. This new design will allow inmates to receive those services in the dorms. The latest design also allows for space within the dormitories for video visitation, again, reducing the need for extra staff to facilitate inmate movement for the visitation. We believe this latest design will save us staff time and staff costs. However, we're $700,000 short. Without the loan to meet the $700,000, we would need to go back to the architect, reduce these opportunities, and risk a costly delay. We can now take any questions you have about the loan, and on hand today is our probation chief and the chair of our CCP, Ted Baran, and our auditor, Joe Paul Gonzalez.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor De La Cruz?
For Joe. Okay, I understand, identifying the sources of the general fund. If the board does go in that direction, doesn't the board have the right to include an interest rate of return, or for the loaning the money out?
In this case, since it's ourselves, the general fund, we would not be, asking for, reimbursement of lost interest. At least that would not be my recommendation. If it were, for example, other fund, even in that case, it's probably, not appropriate to ask for interest reimbursement. Because again, it's, even if it's integrated waste, we are the same, we're still the county. Where we have had situations where we've charged interest is where they're outside special districts. And in that case, it's appropriate to go ahead and charge the interest opportunity loss that the county would incur.
How come you identified the general fund is the best source of funding?
Well, virtually there is no other opportunity to, given that the budget's already been adopted and the restrictions by the County Budget Act, in the County Budget Act, so basically you have the opportunity to declare a project, declare the funding during the budget hearings. This request has come to the board subsequent to that budget hearing, so those hearings are closed. The revenues the reserves are locked in. And so the only appropriate method to allow for an increase in expenditures in this project would be through a short-term transfer or loan, you might want to say, from the general fund reserve. We're not talking about the operating contingency, which is funds right now available in the contingency. This is, and so if it's the board's desire to take this action, the board would be basically saying, okay, we're going to allow this project to increase expenditures by $700,000, and we're creating a receivable to the general fund for $700,000 because it's expected that these funds will be reimbursed in future years from AB 109 funding. We know historically, I believe for the last 3 years, there's been a commitment by the committee, the local commission, AB 109 commission, to to allocate $100,000 a year for the jail project.
So they have set aside $100,000 every year the last 3 years, they have?
Yes. Yes, they
Okay,
have.
so they have a past history of performing that transaction.
That's all we can point to. We can't, we cannot say absolutely for sure in the future that, if, how it is in Sacramento, legislation changes, realignment changes, and that source of funding for dealing with the, the realignment shift, that won't change.
So what are they doing with that $300,000 right now?
It has gone into the project.
Oh.
May I, as a follow-up to your question, Mr. Chair, may I? So then the 300,000 has already been factored in, that we have already put in from the CCP, has already been factored into the cost? I'm assuming.
It has been, it has been already allocated.
Allocated, okay, that's what I mean. It's already been allocated, so then this would be in addition to the first 100,000 for the first 3 years, so.
Keep in mind that this is for a contingency.
Right.
So it's possible, not probable, but it's possible that that contingency will not be used, and it'll be excess to the project.
That is true.
So,
But our sheriff said earlier that, who was it, I read somewhere here, miscalculate, somewhere that underestimate or something, that we don't want to go back to the construction, or the word he said, otherwise it will delay the project, which we
right.
can lose funding for everything. So that tells me that actually he's looking for that money.
Yes.
yes. This project requires that funding in order for it to go forward in its current
Okay, so
form.
you will need contingency fund in order to move forward then?
Yes.
Yes. That's a requirement from the state.
Even though that contingency may never be touched, because we may not need to,
It's-
it still needs to be identified and accounted
That's right.
for.
And this board has to authorize that.
Yeah.
That change. And keep in mind, again, that this project, this AB 900 project, is a 95% share of cost from the state, 5% local match. So this is a very, very good opportunity for the county.
I just wish that they also had, for operating expenses, allocation too.
I'm talking strictly from a capital standpoint. It's a great opportunity because, as you know, even at the current level, as the sheriff and Don Bradley had explained, we're already over capacity. So this project is a bit of is more than a necessity.
Supervisor Rivas?
Yeah, I'll take those comments with some reservation that this is a great opportunity. I'm preparing a lecture for my class at Gavin College on how our governments work together. Our unique system here in the United States. How we have states and you have the federal government, and very rarely do you have a situation that's good for everybody. And this is my concern is. I think, what the chairman, what he talked about earlier about the electric car and these hidden costs, it's a difficult pill to swallow because in the end, we're the ones that get criticized. Sure, this is a great deal for us, but, we're dealing with taxpayer dollars here. And so, I see this item, it says that the auditor has identified this, so maybe I missed it. Identify this source of the $700,000 from the general fund. So specifically, where from the general fund is this coming? And then it says, you had made reference to a short-term loan. And so I'm not sure if I'm reading this right or not, but it says this funding source is general fund and will be repaid $100,000 annually. So it'll be paid over 7 years. Right. So that doesn't seem short-term to me. A lot.
Okay, well, let me explain.
Most of us may not be on this board by the time this thing's repaid, if it ever is repaid. So, that's my concern.
Sure. Because of the County Budget Act, the board already took action as in terms of capital projects. Cannot add a capital project at this time unless a new funding source from outside of the agency is somehow comes in. So this is not the case here. This is an existing capital project where the project capital needs have increased after the time of which the board has adopted its budget. So its only option there's a couple. One, it could use its contingency, general fund contingency, for that purpose. These are, as you know, allocated expenditures for, some event that the board might need to have access to those funds. The only other opportunity is to do we call this a balance sheet loan, basically from our reserves. We're committing from our reserve $700,000 in the short term. Basically, it has to be repaid July 1st of 15. That's why it's a short-term loan. It's repaid in the form of the board at that time adopting this project, when it adopts the subsequent year's expenditures, that it adopts that as part of its project costs, the other $700,000. And at that time, the board will create a loan resolution for the purpose of receiving back $100,000 per year for the project. And that's when it becomes a longer-term project. It's a 7-year project.
Joe, Mr. Chair, don't we have other financial options like a COP, Certificate of Participation, any of that kind of stuff? Can we delay, not technically, but on paper, spread out the construction costs, and then when we start the budget processing up, and we can allocate out of the reserve to make it into a loan from that reserve into this project? I can't believe that we're just stuck by using just the general fund. Something in my head tells me that there's got to be other options.
Well, in the past, the board has used like impact fees to borrow from. We didn't, we felt that since this is a general fund purpose, that it was appropriate to use general fund source of funding for the, for this capital project. So it seemed, it's appropriate for us to be able to make this short-term loan, less than 12 months, to the project, allowing these expenditures to increase in that project and creating a receivable in our general fund. It does lock in the board to approving next year's project with the additional $700,000.
In the receivable, yeah.
But, Mr. Chair, may I ask, at that time, when we look at this a year from now, or almost a little less than a year from now, will we then, if there are other opportunities, certainly we can adopt those opportunities, like funding, for instance. We can figure out another way if we absolutely, if there is an opportunity to do it.
Certainly there is. But in all cases, this short-term loan has to be paid back by July 1st.
By July 1st, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I think, Sheriff Thompson, are we ready to open this up to the public, or do you have some other comments? Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If there are no more questions about AB 109 or about the construct of the loan, I do have some closing remarks I'd like to make. Seeing no further questions, I'll continue. I began this presentation 35 minutes ago with this statement. This jail expansion award is a great opportunity, but unfortunately it does not come to us at a great time. In fact, we would all agree there are many needs in the county that may be seen by some as more urgent than jail expansion. However, this is an extraordinary opportunity that we need to look at. Our jail needed more bed space and more program space yesterday. If we can commit to staffing and operating this jail, we have the opportunity to build a $16 million jail for about $53,000 in cash. If we cannot get this done as a team, the next Board of Supervisors and the next sheriff could be looking for that $16 million elsewhere. It could be out of the general fund. And they would also be facing the same staffing and operational costs that we're facing today. They could look back at us and ask why our team couldn't get it done when we had the $16 million of state money to do it. Supervisor Rivas, I appreciated your comments earlier. I entertain many of the same conversations that you do, and we will not go without criticism. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you will be criticized anyway." That could not be more true than today. We shall endure criticism regardless of our decision. If we agree to move forward with this project, we'll face criticism for committing precious county resources to a jail during these difficult times. But if we don't agree to move forward and give up this award, we'll be criticized for kicking the can down the road, asking our future community leaders to raise $16 million instead of $53,000. Your first vote today will be whether or not to agree to the cost estimations for staffing and operating. And your second vote will be whether or not to agree to help facilitating the loan so that we can keep this current design. And this does conclude our presentation.
Unless there's any other questions of the board, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public?
Mark Wyrick, SEIU 521. As of yesterday, we sought clarification from the sheriff regarding these items, and the response was appreciated since we had many questions regarding community involvement and how programs will be expanded to meet the needs of the community, specifically youth and mental health programs that reduce recidivism. Yet, SEIU 521 is concerned about the county's fiscal responsibility in ensuring that the budget is sound enough to make the $700,000 investment and able to withstand the loss of money to the general fund without further harming services to the community. As a result of pay cuts to workers in the SEIU 521 unit, many employees have chosen to leave San Benito County to work in neighboring counties for better pay and manageable workloads. We hope this board makes an investment in your staff by recruiting and retaining qualified staff that will meet the needs of our community. And we hope that this board makes an investment in the future to ensure that staff do not continue to leave. SEIU 521 members respectfully ask this board to think about the frontline workers who do the day-to-day work within the community. Thank you.
Marty Richmond again from Hollister. I'm not second guessing the sheriff. Maybe after I leave you, someone can respond to this. I am concerned that the staffing levels put forward may not be enough because of two or three reasons. Number one is I didn't hear anything talk about increasing the transportation staff. If you put on 72 more inmates are housed, you might have more transportation requirements. I understand. I'm not an expert in the field. I'm certainly not going to second guess the custodial staffing amount, the shift, adding a person to each shift. But I am concerned that we may have to add a transportation, and we should. And I also would like to say that when staffing is at an absolute minimum, then you have no search capacity, and I would hope that we would put in enough search capacity to cover our average time when people are on vacation and people are on family leave, or they're on sick leave, or they're injured and cannot work. So I think it's prudent to add some transportation. I understand the budgets are tight. I also think it's prudent to add a little bit of surge capacity can save you a lot of aggravation when something goes wrong and you're shorthanded. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but you should have some. And from what I understand in this briefing, we essentially have none right now. Zero surge capacity. If somebody trips and falls on the way into work, all of a sudden that shift is going to be short, or somebody else is going to be running a double shift or a triple shift, and pretty soon you're in a lot of trouble. So that's my own comment on that. I support doing it. I would remind everybody that the sheriff is not asking for a $700,000 contribution. He's asking for a $700,000 loan. I understand that we cannot strangle the state and guarantee that they will come up with the AB 109 money, but we do that all the time. I know you run HHS down here. You run it on faith. I mean, we pick up an enormous amount of employee benefits and employee salaries and run it because the people need it, and we know that 6 months later, sometimes 8 months later, when they get around to it, they'll pay us off. Sometimes we have to fight like hell to get the money, but sooner or later we'll pay us off. I think the AB 109 folks will pay us off. I think you will get that loan repaid, and I understand the reason we're stuck with a loan is because of the County Budget Act. We just can't do anything else within the law. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Anyone else for the public like to address the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
I have one more comment, Mr. Chair, and that is that these numbers that were presented to us, they're really efficient, and I mean, I know you went sharpen your pencils, but I need to remind the board that the Board of State and Community Corrections has already reviewed these numbers, and they're okay with them. They're acceptable. So just want to make sure that you know that, so that we're not doing this blindly. They've already seen them, now they just need our approval. on them, so.
Okay. Supervisor Patel?
Yeah, and I don't think, from the Facilities Committee could say it better than what the sheriff has said it twice already. It's time to move forward with this project. Would it be nicer to have the money just readily available and we don't have to go through the maneuver of a loan? But the AB 109, AB 900 monies are really committed from the state for, law enforcement and, how we choose to use it through the different programs, probation and jail and what have you. I think it's meant for this, and it's secured. I really believe it is. What we got to do going forward, and keep in mind, and I know our staff is more cognizant now than ever before, is how we, get revenue to provide these services, general government type of general fund services through new development, and also we need to make sure Hollister as a city is providing, its fair share towards, jail expansion and the day-to-day operations that we need. And I know we're all working hard to achieve that. And so I would just urge, my colleagues on this board to support this project and move forward today.
Mr. Chair, just one simple question. Sheriff Thompson, the sheriff, I know the answer is yes, I just want to make sure. I hear it, it's in the record too. The staffing costs and annual breakdown, sheriff, captain, lieutenant, all the other individuals, those are what are our books right now, right?
Correct.
There's no changes, no increase or decrease, correct?
The only increase that you see there is the addition of the 4 correctional deputies.
Right, but
that
in
we're
terms
requesting.
of the pay range, it's what we have right now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board on item 28?
I will make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve the analysis of the estimated 30-year costs of operating and staffing the jail expansion project.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes 5-0. What's the pleasure of the board for item 29?
Motion to approve general fund budget augmentation for the jail expansion project in the amount of $700,000 and authorize the county administrator office to sign.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. So, closed session.
Recommendation is to come back at 2:15. 2:15, we should be able to cover our, the closed session items, 45 minutes, and then we'll go to our 3 o'clock meeting.
Okay, everybody's
Okay.
good with that?
We're good?
Yeah, all right.
2:15?
So an hour and a half?
No, no.
Yes.
Okay.
But I brought it. I wanted to point out, without Supervisor Patel, we got done at 10:30 with Supervisor Patel.
Yeah. What the heck? You need more vacations, Anthony.